Sword of Coming Chapter 1195. Chapter 1195. Today Xianxia, there is a visitor. One man and one woman. The woman is the newest master of the top 10 martial artists, Xianxia of Yuzhou Pipa Peak. Lin Jiangxian's 4 direct disciples, 2 end on 2 mountain tops. The eldest disciple Zhou Xian. Now Xianxia is really in charge of this long-established martial artist. The second apprentice, Qi Huajian, was honored by the mountain as Mrs. Qi. She was a plump and charming woman, and she was also the limit. A certain Zhu from Ruzhou and Zhangjiao Lu, a close friend, praised Mrs. Qi as sweet and cold respectively. In addition, there is Zhou Xian and his younger disciple Song Yu, who are now very young warriors on the top of the mountain. According to outside rumors, the reason why the eldest disciple Zhou Xian did not make it to the list is because Master Lin once reminded Bing Jishan in advance that if his eldest disciple was on the list, Bing Xishan Wufu would not have to be on the list in the future. Of course, this assertion has not been proven, nor can it be verified. The key point is that Lin Jiangxian only accepted these 4 apprentices, and as a result, everyone became a talented person and they all became martial arts giants. To say that Yuan He, the previous master of Xuandu Guan with the Taoist name Qing Yuan, this person's aptitude for accepting disciples is indeed enviable. But Yuan He's direct disciples before Wang Sun and Sun Huaizhong had several groups of direct descendants, and they were added together one after another, and there were nearly 20 people. And Lin Jiangxian took in 4 martial arts prodigies in just a short period of time. Therefore, some people laughed and said that if Master Lin was more diligent in accepting his apprentices, that Soldier Jishan would cry and become poor, or if a state accepted a direct disciple, they would first learn boxing with Master Lin for 20 or 30 years, and then return to their hometown to establish the Xianxia branch. If you are not careful, it will be the pattern of the world's martial arts, half in Xianxia. This is the consensus. It's just this kind of words, don't talk nonsense, everyone knows it well. One of the visitors, Xianxia, was in a fight with Song Yu in Xianxia. In fact, they were one level apart, and the question was also proposed by Song Yu. 2 female martial arts masters. A closed-door question-and-box competition. Of course, it's not the kind of life and death. A senior on the mountain who came here with Xianxia as a guest, sitting cross-legged on the futon at the moment, with a youthful appearance, extremely handsome, twisted a folding fan in his hand, nodded in admiration and said, "The female master, when you fight, it is just beautiful. It's really pleasing to the eye." Taoist cultivation relies on self, enlightenment by mind, 1 opening to 100 openings and enlightenment. Wufu's ascension really depends on a diligent and down-to-earth person, relying on hard work. Whether or not Mr. Lin, his friend, is in Xianxia is of little importance to Zhu. As long as Mrs. Qi and Miss Song are present, it is enough. One is not for nothing and both are earned. On the Xianxia side, the 4 direct disciples of Master Lin, together with the younger disciple Song Yu, 2 men and 2 women, were outstanding. Guiyang's punches were light and Song Yu's punches were heavy, and someone Zhu couldn't take his eyes off of them. The big cultivator has good eyesight. Every time the 2 women get hands on hands, the undulating scenery like water ripples is especially moving. When they tacitly agreed, they exchanged a pure infuriating gap. He was finally willing to turn his head and say to Mrs. Qi, "I'm on a long trip, passing by the Qingshan dynasty, and Xiang is not there. Bai O still admires Master Lin very much. After all, no matter how many beauties there are in the world, they can only be divided into 2 factions. The moving water is as quiet as a mountain, and Mrs. Qi is just sitting there, with exquisite curves and undulating peaks and mountains, which are extremely beautiful." In the face of someone Zhu's speechlessness, Mrs. Qi just nodded and didn't speak. The other party's nonsense is a little more, and she will use the killer, just call the Taoist priest's real name. There are 10 people in the world who have been evaluated once in 100 years, and the selection of the abbot of this list is made by the Yongzhou Xianzhang faction. As for the martial arts evaluation of the first time in Jiazi, Xieshan, a neighbor of the Xianzhang faction, was in charge. Among them, the top 10 people in the world who have been evaluated once in 100 years are easy to say. The next few, because of the Taoism of being selected as a monk, do not care whether they are ranked high or low. The selection above is the most likely to cause external disputes, so the Immortal staff sect used a tricky method, often on the top of the 10th tail, to select several candidates, ranging in number as many as 5, as few as 2 or 3. Generally speaking, as long as this 11th is convincing enough, the saliva on the mountain will be small. As a result, for about 1,000 years, there has been an unsuspenseful oil bottle. This Taoist priest is from Ruzhou. According to legend, every time the list is released, the Taoist priests will go to Xuanduguan for a drink, and when they meet they will talk about their hard work and express their sincerity to each other. One is the 5th in the world, the other is the 11th, and Sun Guanzhu is also the leader of the Taoist sword Immortal line in the world. This Taoist priest happens to be also a sword cultivator. It is also thanks to this great cultivator that he is good at talking, has a good temper, and has a vast number of Taoist names. The name of the flying sword is Do Kai. Yi Gaosher, his apprentices, also accepted, but he did not establish a school. However, I have compiled several monographs that are highly suspected of not doing proper work, specifically explaining the academic approach of ferry boats and Yujian. The books are full of uncommon terms that confuse Qi practitioners other than artists, such as what small radius turns, the size of the angle of attack, the central axis, the flow rate of the airflow distribution in the cloud layer. The monk has a strange name, so he is called Zhu someone. He had given himself a lot of Dao names, no less than 20. Of course, Bai Yujing didn't recognize them. Taoist priests like the idle cloud and wild cranes like to travel to various states in their life, and they are not the kind of permanent residents who do not move their nests for a long time. They will stay in a state territory for a short period of a year or 100 years, and collect a number of direct disciples locally. Look at your own eyes and then look at the other's aptitude. And he would keep his name incognito every time, changing the Taoist name, and every new Taoist number was extremely immortal. In fact, Zhu someone is just a self-proclaimed name. Because of his real name he has not been called very much, so that today's young monks mistakenly think that he is called this name and his real name is impossible to ask. The first person in Ruzhou is the mountain warrior Lin Xian. There is no suspense. In the early years there were 10 people in the world, and the 3 headmasters of Bai Yujing had already occupied 3 places, but there were 14 states in the Qingming world, and they could only compete for the remaining 7 places. Fortunately, it was evenly distributed. It happens that the 2 states are divided into one person. Because of the fact that there was a Lin Shi in Ruzhou, Zhu, who was the first person on the mountain in Ruzhou, became more and more eclipsed. Fortunately, someone Zhu never cared about this kind of thing, and it was not the kind of helpless resignation, but the false name that he was really bad. Zhu is a member of the royal family of Russia's second largest dynasty, but he is friends with the founding emperor and current monarch of the Qijin dynasty, an anonymous guest in Yashan, and a close friend with Lin Xian at first sight. I am afraid this is also an important reason why Ruzhou has been so peaceful in the past 200 years. The 2 largest dynasties are in peace with each other and there is harmony up and down the mountain. Zhu and Lin Xian are not the same kind of beautiful men. This ascension cultivator, who has never won a fight and is famous for his all-lose record, has a feminine appearance, unparalleled beauty, and a pair of phoenix eyes. As if born with affection. Lin Jiangxian's green shirt fell on the edge of the martial arts field, and Gu Yanghe and Song Yu stopped punching almost at the same time. Lin Jiangxian said, "This kind of question boxing is of no benefit. It's just a routine. Gu Yanghe doesn't have to press the situation and Song Yu shouldn't hide it. Question boxing is not a joke." Zhu someone caressed his palm and smiled. "Right?" Grandmaster asked Quan not to mention any injuries or anything, but to say that he had a fight and his clothes were a little disheveled, showing a little here, but not completely covering the other side, which is always reasonable. Zhao Hechong and Mrs. Qi were about to get up to make way for their master. Lin Jiangxian waved his hand and just sat beside Zhu at will. Someone, Zhu said with a smile, "It's rare for Master Lin not to stay in Yashan." Lin Jiangxian laughed it off. Zhu someone considered himself to have 2 best friends, Lin Shi from the Qijin dynasty, and Yashang from the Qingshan dynasty. One is that distant relatives are not as good as close neighbors, and the other is that they have similar tastes, and each has led the way for 1,000 years. If you want to take a Dao name that has never been used by predecessors and is unconventional, people today have suffered a big loss. In fact, it is very difficult, very difficult. I have to admit that Bai Yujing manages both strictly and leniently, especially the existence of the second Taoist, which makes the peaceful years in the Qingming world, especially the stability of the countries under the mountains, not to mention the wild world. Even the world of Haoran and the Buddhist kingdoms of the West cannot be compared with the world of Qingming. 14 states in the world, secular dynasties and countries big and small, almost all the big battles are in Seize the Time. At the end of Bai Yujing's second headmaster Yudo's about to step down as headmaster. He began to plan, arrange and deploy troops and horses. The food and grass are not used first, and then the hands that have been moved in the 100 years when Lu Qin was in charge of Bai Yujing. When the big headmaster takes over Bai Yujing, basically the battle that should be fought is over, and it is just time to recuperate. Occasionally border conflicts. A country is divided in the last few years. The two sides will reach a tacit understanding, just because Yudo is about to take charge of Bai Yujing again. In history there are also some big dynasties that have been red-eyed. No matter what, without exception, a pot of cold water from Bai Yujing will be poured down. The so-called cold water may be a majestic rainstorm of spells, and of course it may be a rain of swords in the Ziki building. Only the cultivators at the top of the mountain know the hidden and far-reaching intentions of Bai Yujing. The 12th floor of the 5 cities, especially the lineage of Yudo, is to restrict the vigorous development of that military family to a certain extent. In any case, since the world is generally peaceful and the rules set by Bai Yujing are heavy, then there are naturally many chi trainers who can be called Xianxia. Anyway, don't be too intriguing. Spend time on poetry, lyrics, music, qin, chess, calligraphy, painting and calligraphy. If you are very quiet, you can travel around the world and leave a series of legends and fairy tales at the foot of the mountain. For example, one of Zhu's Taoist nicknames is Ulf Ping. He didn't realize how elegant it was at first, but when he heard the phrase, "I realize that there is nothing in my heart, the little fish jumped out of the green pine," I suddenly felt that the meaning was very different. Many cultivators suddenly realized that it was really useful for those who learn Taoism to know a little bit of poetry and songs, and to read a few miscellaneous books. There are many confidants in the Immortal mansion on the mountain and in the rivers and lakes under the mountain. There is one more thing. Bai Yujing's third headmaster always felt that he and Someone Zhu were very good friends. But Someone Zhu for so many years has been trying his best to distance himself from Headmaster Lu of Bai Yujing. He almost always says to everyone that I really don't know Headmaster Lu and I just know each other. Friends can't do anything right when they say it, let alone say anything. A close friend. The result was counterproductive. The more he explained, the more confused the account was, and Zhu was almost forced to report to the world through Shanshuity, and he didn't know Lu Qin at all. This is really not Someone Zhu's hypocritical, it's really the reputation of the Headmaster Lu. Just to say one thing, Xuanduguan declared to the public that as long as he was a friend of Headmaster Lu, he must be a distinguished guest of our Xuanduguan. Someone Zhu said with a smile. Ma Zhou Xian, the eldest disciple of Pei Cup, has already fallen not long ago. Lin Jiangxian just thought it was an interesting story. It's like an adult with extremely wealthy money and an unfathomable family. Hearing that a certain child from the next-door neighbor's house is very successful, earns money, buys a family business, or fights with people outside and comes home with a bruised face. Of course you have heard it. The eldest disciple Zhao Ku on the side asked doubtfully, "How did Senior get the news?" Someone Zhu smiled and said, "Don't worry about it, the mountain man has his own plan." There are generally only 3 ways for the monks in the Qingming world to learn about the personnel affairs of the other world. The 5 cities and 12 floors each have their own style and characteristics. Comparatively speaking, Nanhua City and Xinxiao City place more emphasis on the news from Haoran Tianxia, while the cities and buildings belonging to Yudo's lineage place more emphasis on the wild. For example, Upside Down Mountain, which used to be connected to the Great Wall of Sorqi, is an excellent source of news. Bai Yujing will pick out some relatively important news and tell the world. Then, through a trip across the world similar to Xuanduguan's son Huaizhong, he returned to his hometown and brought back some inside information. But it has always been a mystery how many ascension realms there are among the mountain cultivators in the Qingming world today, who are in a foreign land. I am afraid that except for the 3 headmasters of Bai Yujing, no one dares to say what they know. The last type, relatively hidden and with many restrictions, is Bai Yujing's 3-lineage Taoist lineage, the Xiazong built in the vast world, the Taoist heavenly monarchs who are more difficult to meet than to ascend to the sky. Respect the incense through the Patriarch's Hall, and at least mention a few, incidentally, things that do not violate the prohibition and do not go beyond the rules. But almost all Haoran heavenly monarchs and Taoist high sects will be extremely cautious in this matter and will not dare to reveal too many secrets. Furthermore, once some secrets that are considered taboo by Confucianism are revealed, Won't the Zhongtu Confucian Temple really pursue it? Yaxing, Suzi, Lu Qi and Chao group who have returned home from Qingming world are all just cultivators Haoran who have come to the fore. In history, it is not that there is no such kind of Taoist sect, so it has been quietly silent in the vast world. This is still a deliberate attempt by the Confucian Temple to save some face for Bai Yujing. Just say that Yaxing, who has just entered the Confucian Temple a few years ago, once replaced the Confucian Temple and personally held a Taoist temple affiliated to Bai Yujing Yudo in Luxiazu. When Yaxing arrived at the gate of the mountain, there was no nonsense at all. Half a sentence, remove the plaque, go to the Zushi Hall, and call all the Taoist priests who have seats in the Zushi Hall. Outsiders don't know what they talked about. Anyway, it turned a huge Taoist temple with a lot of incense into it overnight. The Forbidden Land, that was forced to close the mountain. It is said that until Bai Yujing receives and guides the entire Taoist temple and Taoist priests to go to the Qingming world, they are not allowed to go down the mountain as Taoist priests. It's up to you to vote for another door and the Confucian Temple won't care anymore. Of course, if anyone has the face to try to break away from Taoism first, make small calculations and think that one day they will restore the Taoist ultimatum of the Bai Yujing lineage, and the Confucian Temple will not stop it. Just because of the temperament of Yudo, the ancestor of this lineage, the Taoist priest dares to do such a thing, and the fate of it can be imagined. As a result, this Taoist temple, which has completely cut off the incense, is still a state where Taoist priests can only go out. From the original more than 800 Taoist priests, it has become less than 30 people today, and they are still insisting. There is a gossip that is only discussed in private on the top of the mountain. It is not that the second child did not think about it. He planned to take back the mountain Taoist temple in addition to the upside-down mountain with the largest mountain character under the sky, but this is the case. I need to deal with the Haoran Confucian Temple. Then there was no plaque at the foot of the Taoist temple, and there was a Confucian temple to accompany the sages. And the most amazing thing is that this Confucian temple sage who has not appeared in the world for a long time is not only the direct disciple of the most holy master, but also the most respected. One of the disciples. However, this kind of secret matter that is definitely undocumented and cannot be verified as true or false, can only be used as an appetizer on the wine table. Without the slightest doubt, the earliest news must have come from Daochong Sunday. If someone goes to research something with Daochong Sun, it must be the same sentence. Don't talk nonsense. Pin Dao never speaks behind their backs and chews their tongues. Zhou Xian made no secret of his gloating. He smiled and said, "How did Ma Zhuangxin fall? It's not like walking with a broken foot, right?" Pei Cup, known as the women's martial god, has 4 disciples: Ma Zuanxian, Dou Fanxiao, Liao Qing'ai and Chao Ci. As for the distinction between named and personally passed disciples, no matter how Pei Bei calculates it, the outside world regards their master and apprentice as a lineage of boxing. The 4 pure warriors are 1 end, 1 mountain top complete and 2 far-flung bottlenecks. If there is no major accident except for Chao Ci, since the other 3 people are consummation or bottlenecks, maybe it will take a few years of hard work and they will be 2 ends, 2 mountain tops. In this way, the 2 ends and 2 mountains taught by Master Lin is inevitably inferior. After all, among the disciples of Pei Cup, there is also Chao Ci. Zhu someone earnestly persuaded, "Brother Zong, your bad habit of laughing, you can change it if you can. Usually only villains in books can laugh like this." Qi Huajian smiled sweetly and said, "Senior, don't give a shit." The beauty asked, and Zhu someone immediately smiled and said, "It was Chen Yingguan who came to the door. As for the specific reason, the outside world does not know anyway. It was just a fight and Ma Zhuangxin was unable to fight back. Well, just follow your master is almost the same as a martial artist from the same border. It's a pity that this fight was relatively secretive and not well known enough. Chen Yingguan didn't publicize it and Ma Zuanxian certainly wouldn't talk about it. Since both parties didn't talk about it, the outside world of course relies on guesswork. In the next battle between green and white, including Bai O, you all seem to be optimistic about Chao Ci, but I am different." Zhou Xian said sourly, "Senior sister Qi keeps talking about that Chao Ci all day long. Anything is good. I really don't believe it. Is there really such a perfect person in the world with flawless martial skills, morality and demeanor? There were only 3 members of the same family, but as a result, senior sister and junior sister were both optimistic about Chao Ci. The younger junior sister was okay. She looked at martial arts fists with pure martial arts. Sister Qi was good and she looked at her face. In Gongdalin, the Confucian temple, two people of the same age had a green and white battle, in front of everyone's eyes. On the Qingming world side, although there are hearsays, the mountainside has the view of the mountainside and the mountaintop has the view of the mountaintop. At the top of the mountain they were divided into two groups, each with their own opinions. Some cultivators felt that Zhou Xian would be the best in the world, leaving a large distance in martial arts from Qin Pingon behind him, and a small number of cultivators felt that Qin Pingon had a chance to come out on top, catching up with Zhou Xian and entering the 11th realm earlier. Someone Zhu lost a look at Zhou Xian. We both have the same taste. Zhou Xian grinned, his white teeth thick. Zhu has a lot of witty quotes which are widely circulated. For example, some people will sigh with embarrassment when they see the favorite fairy married as a woman, but it is a pity that they are married. Someone Zhu comforted, wouldn't it be better to marry someone? There are also a lot of dirty words like, one fight, two never lost. Of course, someone Zhu would deny it time and time again. No, I never said such a thing. Zhou Xian glanced at Zhu. He couldn't help but gather his voice and whispered with Qihua. Senior sister, take it easy, this guy is full of bad water. It hasn't been a day or two since he hit you. He's another one to mention it. The master who turns his face on the waistband of his trousers has a lot of confidence, too many to count. Someone Zhu's expression changed slightly. I regard you as my good brother. Do you regard your brother as a certificate of honor? A question box with no suspense. Gu Yang'e is one of the top 10 people in the world of martial arts critics. He doesn't overwhelm the realm and he fights Song Yu, who is still in the mountain realm. If there is still suspense, it will be strange. After the master spoke, Song Yu did not dare anyone to keep any reservations. It's a pity that there is still a clear gap with Gu Yang'e. Song Yu, whose skills are not as good as others, was finally punched in the heart by Gu Yang'e, and his figure slipped out several meters. Stepping on the ground, he was on the verge of falling. Song Yu wanted to clasp his fists in return, but all of a sudden the 7 apertures bleed, but he couldn't say a word and it was difficult to raise his arms. Mrs. Qi said with an angry smile. This girl, she has lost. Even if she loses, how dare she try to be strong? I'm really not afraid of the sequelae. Zhao Hechong said, there's still half a punch. Standing in the center of the martial arts field, the heroic Gu Yang'e took a deep breath and stretched out his hand to wrap the braid behind him in front of him. In an instant, Song Yu collapsed to the ground. The Wufu Jinqi that was left in Song Yu's body suddenly collided in several key meridians, causing Song Yu to faint on the spot. Zhou Xian was a little shocked. Does this mean that as long as Gu Yang's fist gets on his body, hidden dangers are buried in the body of the martial artist who was asked about the fist? If Gu Yang'e kills the killer, wouldn't the body of the junior sister be like a firecracker? Zhu's thinking is always different from that of ordinary people. Looking at the braid hanging in front of Gu Yang'e, it is like a stream flowing between the opposing peaks. This is the uniqueness of Gu Yang's boxing skills. Her ancestors were born as subordinate officials for generations. In addition to inheriting family education, as long as there is a battlefield, she runs wherever she goes. Gu Yang'e is also good at vipassana. At a young age, he subdivided the human Buddhist bones and meridians into mountains, water systems, and Qifu as lakes, naming them separately and forming their own system. Therefore, in the opinion of Zhu, this is the master of martial arts who has really stepped out of his own way. As for the masters of Bing Jishan, Qi Guan and Yu Yu, who are also on the list, they rely more on the inheritance and talent of their teachers, and they are closely matched with Gu Yan of Pipa Peak. The gap between the songs is not in the 1 or 2 rankings, but in the high level of the road of martial arts, and more in the depth of research on martial arts. Gu Yang'e clasped his fists and said, how much offense? According to someone from Zhu, Master Lin pays the most attention to etiquette and fairness. You go to Yashan to teach Song Yu a boxing session. If you are a master, you will definitely return the courtesy. Lin Jiangxian smiled and said, in the next question boxing, change the method. Gu Yang'e teamed up with Qi Huajian, Zhao Hechong and Zhou Xian teamed up, and the one who fell down would be considered a loser. Among the 4, only Zhou Xian was a warrior at the top of the mountain. So Gu Yang'e frowned slightly. Didn't he join forces with Zhou Xian? Does this mean that Zhao Hechong's boxing is higher than his own? Someone Zhu clapped his hands and laughed. Okay, it's really a once-in-century martial arts grand occasion. Mrs. Qi stood up and instantly looked like 2 people. She made a fist with one hand and gently twisted her knuckles. Zhao Hechong looked as usual, first clasped his fists to salute his master, and then walked slowly to the martial arts arena. Zhou Xian interlaced his hands and fingers, turned his neck and said with a smile, "Senior Sister Qi, the opportunity is rare. We agreed in advance. Punching and kicking can be done anywhere, just don't hit your descendants." Mrs. Qi smiled and said, "It's easy to say. Junior brother's wedding wine is always something to drink." She first wakes up her junior sister Song Yu, who has fallen to the ground. In fact, it is a fist that shakes away the aftertaste of Gu Yang's fist. Then she puts her fingers together and beats Song Yu everywhere, making those sounds like strings of a violin. The fine fists scattered all over the body of the junior sister were expelled to some unimportant mountain water currents. Next, how to deal with these chaotic ministers and thieves. It was up to Song Yu to adjust his breath. Song Yu's face was snow-white and he staggered back to his original position. Someone Zhu hurriedly said, "Miss Song actually doesn't lose much, especially the few punches you created, but you just lost in the realm." Song Yu turned a deaf ear. Lin Jiangxian glanced at the little disciple. Song Yu immediately clasped a fist with someone Zhu in a salute. Lin Jiangxian said, "Look at the boxing with your heart first. Then when you are recovering, think more about it and figure out where you lost. If you don't understand, go to ask Gu Yang'a for advice. After 3 days you will ask Zhao Hechong about boxing. In one, the identities are exchanged and you come to imitate Gu Yang's boxing moves." Song Yu said obediently, "Master, I understand." Zhu Sun was so envious that he could not receive such a sensible disciple. Song Yu's greatest aptitude for martial arts is stealing. If you put it nicely, it is to imitate the moves of other masters and even fist intent. Lin Jiangxian said, "Before going down the mountain, I told you to pay attention to 3 kinds of people: the ordinary master who has never learned boxing, the disciple from the outside world who has just learned boxing, and the martial artist who has achieved little in boxing. Do you have any experience?" Song Yu said with a guilty conscience, "Master, I've read it very carefully, but I haven't figured out any way." Lin Jiangxian said, "The vulgar master, the whole body, the muscles are stiff. In the words of the boxing master, it is a hard support when walking because the vulgar chi turbidity cannot be separated from the turbidity, so the breath is chaotic. The body refining realm of beginner boxing, and then to the chi refining realm, the turbid chi turns clear and becomes softer, which is similar to the pursuit of immortality by chi practitioners, seeking a lightweight flying lift. What is home learning? Orally taught by heart. That's it." Seeing that Miss Song became more and more confused, Mr. Zhu was the worst at seeing a good-looking woman being wronged, so he had to take the initiative to remind him. The same is true. The feeling that Master Lin really wants you to remember is that Gu Yang'a has just hidden it on you. After the half-fist hit, the process of being paralyzed, this almost extreme posture stretch, even if it is forced, if Wu Fu can accurately capture it and then continue to imitate it, besides asking people about punches, the whole person will being in this almost natural and mysterious state is an unknown benefit. It is similar to the return to basics of Qi practitioners. I am afraid this is also the biggest intention of Gu Yang'a to teach you boxing." Lin Jiangxian nodded. Mr. Zhu twisted the folding fan in his hand. "Miss Song, you should also pay attention to what Master Lin calls a mass of chaos. This is a university question and a great realm. As for the specific knowledge, Mr. Zhu is not a pure martial artist after all, so I can't tell. I only know that Master Lin points out the boxing technique and it has always been targeted." While Song Yu carefully observed the questioning process at the martial arts field, he had to listen carefully to the teacher's teachings and Zhu's suggestions. In the martial arts field, there are 4 well-deserved heaven's favored sons and masters of martial arts. In their rare questioning boxing next, Zhao Hechong was actually protecting Zhou Xian. Gu Yang'a and Madame Qi were both masters of the same realm and friends for many years, and they cooperated seamlessly. Gu Yang'a, who occupies a Pipa Peak in Yuzhou but does not establish a sect, is the 8th person in the world of martial arts, 1 rank higher than Yu Yu, who is a soldier and his real age is unknown. She and Lin Jiangxian's second disciple Qi Huajian met by chance. They have been friends for many years. Every time Mrs. Qi goes out for a long trip, she makes a special trip to Pipa Peak. Zhao Hechong felt that the reason why Senior Zhu came to Yashan as a guest was to help Gu Yang'a match up, to ask Master about boxing techniques, and to see the second and younger sisters by the way. Qi Huajian is a swordsman, and he has the same martial arts skills as Qi Gu, the martial artist of the Qingshan dynasty. So people often ridicule Gu. Are you a distant relative of that Mrs. Gu also echoed, I want to hug her thigh. A good-looking woman and a good-looking woman, if they walk together, are mostly subtraction. But if it is an addition, it means that these two good-looking women are really good-looking. On the martial arts field, poor Zhou Xian complained so much that he couldn't remember how many times he was beaten with a knife by senior sister Qi. In addition, the elder brother Zhao Hechong punched him from time to time to help Zhou Xian break up Gu Yang's hidden fist intent in time. Someone Zhu commented, Brother Zhong can do it. It looks like a 3-in-1. One person in the top of the mountain can actually pick up 3 out of the 3. It is also a good talk to spread it out. Zhao Hechong stretched out his hand to hold the side of Zhong Xueqi's head. The latter flew out instantly. Zhao Hechong exchanged punches with Qi Hua. And then Gu Yang'a used to make a strange sword, stab Zhao Hechong's neck shui to point. It can be regarded as helping Zhou Xian to prevent disasters. This acupoint is quite crucial. It is called Zhou Xian in martial arts, and it is known as Xiaoximen. It means that the real qi of the earth is like water surging and transpiring in the sky. It is a border between heaven and earth, and it is used as an opening and closing mechanism, but Zhao Hechong does not know what kind of boxing secret technique was used. It seemed to be able to separate out a majestic, pure, infuriating energy. And in an instant, the vision of qi and blood that was boiled and then frozen was forcibly suppressed, and the infuriating path returned to smoothness. Just now he and Qi Hua exchanged punches. As for the Sidhu acupoint of his arm that was rubbed by her fist, Zhao Hechong clenched his teeth a little. The side face of Qi Huajian, who retreated, hit the second junior sister's head, and Qi Huajian's eyeballs were instantly covered with bloodshot, and blue veins burst out on her forehead. Fortunately, this time was not in vain. Gu Yang'a still used his to form a sword finger, and he shot very quickly. He tapped Zhao Hechong's back successively at the Shinto Lingtai and Jiang 3 places from top to bottom. Big like a Taoist temple ringing a bell. Outsider Zhou Xian's scalp is numb. Gu Yang'a really can do it. In exchange for having suffered these points a few times, he must not fall directly. In fact, it was Zhao Hechong who was really 1-3 because according to Master Lin's rules, his younger brother Zhou Xueqi was a burden, and would only make Zhao He throw punches and beat his hands and feet. Of course, Zhao Hechong can bet. Before Gu Yang'a or Qi Huajian beat Zhou Xian, he will defeat one earlier and faster. But the problem is that they are both martial artists and have a good heart. The two sides cooperate very well. Especially as a swordsman, junior sister Qi has a tough physique and is different from ordinary people. Even Zhao Hechong would not dare to say that his physique must be more stable than Qi Huajian. Of course, the most important reason is that this competition is really just a competition. The final result was that Zhao Hechong was knocked to the ground by Gu Yang'a and Qi Huajian. He lost, but there was no embarrassment. Zhao Hechong's breath was still calm and he reached out to pat the ground and stood up. On the contrary, Zhou Xian only felt that the whole person was about to fall apart. Lin Jiangxian nodded and said, okay. The 4 of them returned to their seats and Gu Yang'a reached out and gently held the braid hanging in front of him, adjusting his breathing. She glanced at Zhao Hechong, worthy of being the first disciple of Master Lin. Qi Huajian stretched out his hand to straighten his temples, hair and clothes. Just now, senior brother Zhao had a few punches and he really didn't care about his friendship. Zhou Xian grinned and his fame was ruined. It is estimated that he will be ridiculed by Song junior sister for the next whole year. Song Yu's eyes shone brightly. It's a pity that I can't see this peak questioning boxing with my own eyes. Regarding the rumors about Cao Ci, she had already heard calluses in her ears. Coupled with the famous young hidden official, this is good, and there is one more peer who can be an opponent. It's not an opponent anymore, it's the object she must surpass in her life. After all, I heard that they have all reached the level of the end. She couldn't imagine that 2 warriors of the same age as herself could have such a high level and such a magnificent boxing technique. Gu Yang'a nodded. She confessed that she had asked Cao Ci about boxing and she would definitely lose. But Qin Pingon, who has lost several fights to Cao Ci, can she always give it a try? Mrs. Qi's voice is naturally charming and has a unique softness, and she said softly, after all, Cao Ci is more beautiful. Zhao Hechong said with a smile. Cao Ci's boxing intention is neutral and peaceful, and it is impeccable. Just like Beta Shengjing Juzhong plays chess with others, there has never been an immortal hand. Wu Fu is a face-to-face enemy, and it is very hopeless to think about it, especially when he is older. The same-level martial artist who goes down all the way down to the subchess is really desperate and boring, and he is destined to not learn the magic of Chaosis boxing. On the other hand, Qin Pingon, his boxing skills can be described as consummate. He integrates the strengths of various masters and hundreds of schools, and he eats 100 schools of food all the way. It is not easy to be able to cast a furnace. If there are 2 opportunities to ask boxing at the same time, but you have to choose one of the 2, then I will definitely choose Chaoxiai. Song Yu wondered, eldest brother, why is this? Zhao Hechong smiled and said, if you lose to Chaoxiai, if you lose, you will lose. If you don't learn anything, you won't be able to learn. It's not a shame to lose to him. But if you have a real fight with Qin Pingon, whether you win or lose, you will lose a lot. Why do you lose money? Others don't understand, but junior sister Song, you don't understand. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that Qin Pingon and Chaoxiai asked about boxing, and they lost more than one game. Song Yu gave his senior brother a blank look. Someone Zhu asked curiously, Master Lin, what do you think? Who will be higher and who will be lower in the next 100 years? Lin Xian said, after all, I haven't seen them before, so it's hard to comment. Someone Zhu changed the question, then who will win the next fight? Lin Xian said, it's definitely still Chaoxiai who wins. In fact, in Lin Jiangxian's opinion, if he only looks at the question boxing as a pure martial artist, I am afraid that Qin Pingon will not be able to surpass Chaoxiai in his life. Whether it is the height of martial arts or the strength of boxing, Qin Pingon will always be half a position behind Chaoxiai. At the end of the martial arts path, the status is the status of God. Zhu someone smiled and said, stable. There is a don't lose game about Chaoxiai in Haoran. In recent years in Ruzhou, some people have also set up gambling games. Half of the reason for someone Zhu going out for this trip is for this matter. Anyway, I have nothing to do and make some money to spend. In case the stove falls, it's fine. The gambling establishment is a certain ticket bank in Ruzhou. What does it have to do with me, Zhu? Someone Zhu remembered one incident and said, I saw Zhou Xian on this long trip, and we drank flower wine together on the locked island in Luai's lake. There is an ancient state Lu Shen in the Qingming world, which is a giant lake with 4 islands, hence the name Little Four States, and 2 lake owners sit in it. One of them, Wang surnamed Tai, and Lei Yu the female lake owner who is actually a Hu, delimited the boundary, each occupying half of the water. Wang and Lei Yu, these 2 very long Daoists, are one of the latest 10 candidates in the world. It's just that there is no conclusion about the name of the giant lake. The surname Wang named the 2 waters as Ganhu and Kunhu respectively. Lei Yu didn't care about the other party's territory, and only named his half of the giant lake Leizhe. Wang's personal dojo is located on Maoshan Island, and the ancestral hall was built on Tianqi Island. During his monastic life, he liked raising geese and lived on the banks of a river with peace of mind. Thunderstorm's dojo is located in Meifeng, and a summer residence is established in Longshan. Lin Jiangxian asked with a smile, how do you say it? Someone Zhu commented, a very interesting person. At that time at the island locking banquet, in addition to the lake owner Lei Yu, there was also Yang Qing who was guarding the mountain pavilion. This guy Zhou Xian clearly wanted to eat everything and he didn't hide his heart. If Yang Qing is killed, he will be lucky. Zhong Shuaqin sneered, how dare you provoke Yang Qing the mirage? Does this guy know whether to live or die? Song Yu asked curiously, how old are Su Mian and Su Yingyu? I heard that Zhou Xian is less than 1,000 years old. Are they really siblings? Sister and brother, of course that's true. Mr. Zhu lowered his voice and said, aren't you curious who their 3 parents are? Zhong Shuaqin said in a low voice, I just heard that their father was a great cultivator who briefly entered the 14th realm, and was taught a lesson by a headmaster in Baiyujing. Song Yu wondered, can the 14th realm still fall? Someone Zhu said with a heartfelt smile, I don't know if there is a fall, but I only know that this senior has great respect for the headmaster of Baiyujing, and always feels that the other 2 headmasters govern the world. The methods are too soft and the words ramble just because the 2 headmasters are too talkative, that makes the Qingming world so unstoppable. Mrs. Qi smiled and said, no wonder the 2 daughters were named so, it turns out that this senior was holding his breath. Zhong Shuaqin said without restraint and said carelessly, having given birth to 2 promising daughters, why is it that the son of Yupu who has practiced Taoism for nearly 1,000 years is born again? Is it more patriarchal than women? If you talk about the lucky ones of Hongfu Qitian, there are 4 recognized in the Qingming world. The Taoist priest Shan Qing, who received apprentices on behalf of Lu Qin through the headmaster Lu Qin, ascended to the sky in one step and became a close disciple of the Taoist ancestors. Now he is in charge of all Taoist affairs of Bai Yujing in the colorful world. The ghost Su Jun, who became a Taoist companion with Chaoga, is of course the unquestionable number 1. The Great Chao sect and Liang Jingshan have now started to build the next sect, and Su Jun will be the head of the 4 sects by then. When Daoist Sun commented on this matter, he said, "There is no sect feud in the world that cannot be resolved by a wedding banquet." Yunlu, the king of rice thieves, was fortunate to be apprenticed to the master of Bixiao Cave. According to Sun Daocheng's Zhong Yun's words, the melon skin is cowardly, the steamed bun has turned upside down, and it is too big to show off. It will be difficult to think about death in the future. Jianxiu Su Shiyuan, a female nun who has a pair of twin sisters, is among the 10 candidates in the world this time. The elder sister Su Mian is the master of Qingmi Dongtian and the ancestor of the Dresser lineage, the founder of the mountain in the line of Lian Hongsu, and Su Shiyuan is their younger brother. In addition, according to legend, Su Xian is also an anonymous disciple of the king of Shanin Yuka Tai, and even swore with the 2 as brothers with different surnames, namely Fire Officer, the founding emperor of the Hengyang dynasty. Luo Yi Wuxi, the Shade Marquis of Yushan Kingdom of Peizhou. 2 sisters, 1 preacher, 2 sworn brothers, all 5 of them are among the 10 candidates in the Qingming world. Therefore there are 2 popular sayings about this person in the Qingming world. One is given by Sun Guanzhu and the other is said by Sun Guanzhu and Lu Zhangjiao. No backer Su Shiyuan, self-reliant Su Gongzi. The Qingming world has long been accustomed to those interesting people and interesting things as long as Daoist Sun doesn't say a word or 2 of fairness, and let others say 1,000 words and 10,000, they always feel that the taste is not right. A certain Zhu shuddered and taught a serious lesson, "Speak carefully, boy." At this moment, a majestic aura wrapped around the entire Crow Mountain like a cloud. Qi Huajian's expression changed slightly, and he glared fiercely at the unobtrusive junior brother. Song Yu even felt that his breathing was stagnant. Lin Jiangxian smiled and said, "Since you dare to live, are you afraid that outsiders will gossip?" The atmosphere that was like a mighty catastrophe covering Yashan became more and more heavy. Lin Jiangxian narrowed his eyes and said, "Senior is a mustard seed. If you don't quit the Yashan realm, don't blame me for returning the gift to the Jintang dojo." After a while, Yashan returned to its peaceful atmosphere. Obviously, the mind of this great cultivator withdrew from the realm of the Qijing dynasty. Someone Zhu sighed, Brother Zong, you are in big trouble. This unpredictable disaster is due to the fact that Master Lin is sitting in Yashan. This senior Taoist priest at the same time as Wuzhou has several techniques of pressing the bottom of the box, which can be called shocking. One of them can turn the earth into a water town and a country in an instant. It can also create a wind corridor and water pavilion, and Taoist priests live in it, and finally refine a magic sword with 1,000 feet of red dust. Of course, this person has entered the 14th realm by the way of the road and the right place. About 1,000 years ago, the Taoist priests in Juzhou who were approaching the deadline, worked hard for more than 1,000 years, and they retreated and reunited in just a moment. It is precisely because this move disturbed the appearance of a state and violated the rules set by Yujing that his friend Yudo came here with a sword. Yudo, the headmaster wearing a robe and holding an immortal sword, directly brought the Taoist priest who had just entered the 14th realm back to the immortal realm. At the same time, Qingmi Cave and Heavenly Paradise, which were originally connected to each other, were also affected, and Yudo cut off the connection with a sword and then ordered the cave to be closed. In terms of Tianqin, in terms of selflessness, Yudo claimed to be the second and no one in the Qingming world dared to be the first. However, these are old things that happened 1,000 years ago, and that Juzhou Taoist official, from his success in joining the road to the moment when he fell down, was less than a stick of incense and he was extremely concealed. Zhong Shuoqin turned to look at the master. Lin Jiangxian said indifferently, "If you recover from the injury, go down the mountain, go to the Jintang dojo, stroll around there and then return to Yashan." Zhao Hechong said it was okay, they were all used to it. As an outsider, Gu Yong'e was speechless. Zhong Shuoqin swallowed and clasped his fists. Lin Jiangxian said, "Gu Yong'e, during your stay in Yashan we will have 2 matches." Gu Yong'e radiated energy, clasped his fists and said solemnly, "Junior, I beg Master Lin to enlighten me." Zhou someone was relieved, and he lived up to the entrustment of the beautiful woman. The trip to Yashan was full of merits and virtues. In fact, he and Gu Yong'e met halfway because they had the same destination. They went together. It's a pity that we didn't talk a lot along the way. It's not that he has bad looks and lack of skill just because Gu Yong'e doesn't seem to like men. Is there any way for him to become a woman? He, the ruler of the Ruzhou Taoist official, was once the champion of the Zhegon dynasty in Ruzhou, and his talent was naturally excellent, and then he was caught son-in-law under the list, and became the concubine. He is the most proud admirer in the world. The crown covers the capital and the people are haggard. Look how well written. Someone Zhu always feels that half of Bai Ye's poems are tailor-made for him. The group left the martial arts field and changed to a drinking place. As for Song Yu, his senior sister Qi Huajian pulled him into a pot of medicine. Gu Yong'e asked, "Senior Zhu, are you familiar with Xuanduguan's son Daochong?" Someone Zhu replied cautiously, "It's an acquaintance, not too familiar." "Let it go. Miss Yong'e, do you have a personal grudge with Xuanduguan of Qizhou? Or do you have something to ask for with the master Sun Guan, who has never been very fond of hospitality?" "It's alright, I just want to say thank you to Daoist's son, but Daoist's son doesn't seem to be in Taoist temple a few years ago, and has never been able to see me. It is estimated that Daoist's son doesn't remember me now, so I rushed to Qizhou to visit and I was afraid that I would come to Xuandu. Guan will still be closed." Someone Zhu breathed a sigh of relief and suddenly saw that the wind made the rudder change his words. "Although I am not too familiar with Sun Guanzhu, but Sun Guanzhu also invited me to go there for a drink, which is really true to the old saying, it is better to hurry up sooner. Coincidentally, if Miss Yong'e is willing, she can follow me to visit Xuanduguan in the near future. With Sun Guanzhu you can be unfamiliar or very familiar." Lin Xian was expressionless, too lazy to expose his friend's hide. Sun Huaizhong didn't have much friendship with Zhu. At most it was a little bit better than a nodding acquaintance. For the monks on the mountain, the two sides really belong to the kind that often meet each other, but if they really care about it, the friendship is average and quite ordinary. As soon as they came, the two sides were not the same people. Zhu someone liked the vassal and elegant, but Sun Daochong was the least willing to talk. Moreover, every time someone Zhu went to Xuanduguan as a guest, he had to go there. Whenever Sun Guanzhu felt that his drink was too boring, he would ask fellow Daoist Zhu from Ruzhou to drink with him. In addition, because of the old guard, every time he saw Zhu he would grab the latter's arm and persuade him repeatedly. "Why don't you use the real name of Zhu Dezhuang? You are always looking for new ideas. If you don't have one ready-made, why ride a donkey to find a donkey?" Can someone from Zhu agree? If it weren't for the 11th person who was on the line, he would definitely not be able to beat the unstoppable 5th person in the world. Someone Zhu wanted to hold the other person's head, ask loudly and make it clear to Lao Tzu, "What kind of beautiful talk is this famous for the ages?" It seems that in order to travel to Qizhou with Gu Yong'e, someone Zhu really sacrificed himself, and did not hesitate to throw himself in the net. It is estimated that after entering Xuanduguan with the front foot and walking out with the back foot, as long as the wine you carry with you is not good enough or not enough, then Zhu Dazhuang's real name, not to mention a Qizhou, may be known to passers-by in the whole world. After drinking, someone Zhu took Lin Xian out for a walk. Someone Zhu said with a smile, "Then Zhou Xian has to teach the secret book C of Su Wen, so he is good at Zhu Yuk and can be worthy of the word Jingju." Lin Xian nodded and said, "I hope to be certified as an ancient golden immortal." "It's amazing." Zhu someone tooted his tongue in admiration and said, "It's amazing to be praised by Master Lin, even if my precious drinks are not in vain." Lin Xian said, "I have something to say." Someone Zhu asked a taboo question that would never be spoken if he was not a close friend. "What do you plan to do with Zhao Hechong and those who will be passed down as disciples? Do you have any ideas?" Not to mention Zhao Hechong, who was Lin Jiangxian's great disciple, the rest of them were not the pillars of the mountain, but they were the backbone of Yashan, either in the distant travel realm or the golden body realm. A few of them, or stealing fists from Master Lin or stealing from Yashan, is the next thing. My friend Lin Jiangxian has never had any knowledge about boxing, but he has always been too lazy to teach boxing. When he meets a good seedling outside, Lin Jiangxian is still happy to give advice and even teach a few boxing moves. The problem is that from the disciple Zhao Hechong to the other disciples, they all have inextricable ties to Bai Yujing, and several of them, at least two of them, even maintain secret contact with Bai Yujing to this day. Among them was Zhou Xian, the first disciple of the mountain. If this kind of thing leaked out, it would be a bolt from the blue for Xian and the Qijin dynasty. Lin Xian remained silent. Zhu someone sighed, but he just hadn't thought about it yet. Someone Zhu had seen Zhou Xian on 3 occasions under the guise of his teacher's official business, and quietly connected with the Baiyujing Daoist official who was responsible for regularly patrolling the various states in the world. The first 2 times I witnessed the 2 sides with my own eyes were nearly 30 years apart. It can be seen that the patience of both sides is quite good. From this, it can be seen how someone Zhu is interested in Xian. The number of times that he quietly followed Zhou Xian to leave Xian and the Qijin dynasty may have already passed the number of times. It was the first time I saw them meet in a sneaky way, and they were still discussing how to make Zhou Xian secure the position of the chief disciple, how to deal with the affairs of Xian, and how to deal with His Majesty the Emperor of the Qijin dynasty and those generals and ministers, okay? To win the favor and respect of Master Lin, you must learn the real boxing technique from Master Lin, and at the same time hold real power, especially be careful of that person Zhu. One of them speaks up, the other listens humbly. This unseen meeting is a good meeting and a good meeting. As a result, after meeting for the second time and discussing the business, Zhou Xian began to complain. After all, he was no longer a fledgling young man. Zhou Xian was already a martial arts master in the mountain realm at that time. It seems that at that time the Taoist priest of Baiyujing was also with a Taoist priest of the same age as Zhou Xian, but the young Taoist priest of Ziki Tower did not speak from the beginning to the end. The last time, just the year before, it was Zhou Xiang's first initiative to ask the other party to go to Ruzhou. The Taoist priest of the Ziki corridor did not show up and was in retreat at the time. Zhu someone is so boring and he is idle anyway, so he has to find some way to relieve his worries. Seeing that Lin Xian never opened his mouth, he shook his head and smiled and said, "In the eyes of onlookers I find it irritating, funny and a little pitiful. It is not easy for Zhou Xian to go undercover for this purpose." I remember that Zhou Xian, who was so aggrieved at the time, finished drinking the boring wine and threw the jug. He directly scolded the Daoist Baiyujing, who was not famous but not weak, and said that I would stay like this again. Could it be that he would even become the second-generation head of Xian? Lin Xian finally spoke. Not only Zhao's first apprentice Xiang, but also the second disciple Qi Huajian. The day she and I officially apprenticed, she showed her identity. Ruzhou Xian, the first 2 boxing manuals she practiced were also gifts from Lingbao City Taoist officials, so that one day she could enter Xian and learn boxing with me. According to the agreement between the 2 parties, within 30 years, the boxing techniques she stole from me will be returned to Baiyujing Lingbao City in the future. After that, Qi Huajian has nothing to do with Baiyujing. Since she dares to steal, I will dare to teach her. I want to see if Baiyujing will be able to make another half of Lin Xian in the next 100 years. Zhu Xin laughed dumbly. Could it be that the 4 heirs around you are all spies arranged by Baiyujing? That's not the case. Zhong Shuoqin and Song, you have simple backgrounds and have nothing to do with Baiyujing. Lin Xian said indifferently. Take a step back and say that there are all the spies that Baiyujing has planted by my side. What can I do? Don't forget, this Master Lin is still someone who can claim to help Run Yefeng work hard to figure out when to go down the mountain. Someone Zhu admired. You can see it. I would definitely not be able to do this for me. There is an extra secret money on the fingertip, which is ground into a square, and the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse are engraved on one side. There are many people handling copper coins in the world, so the yang is heavy. The money in Zhu's hand ranks 3rd among the top 10 famous springs in the world. Spend money rolling on someone's fingertips. Lin Xian apologized for no reason. I'm sorry. Someone Zhu smiled casually, her sentimental. It shouldn't be what Master Lin said. Take it back quickly, and I'll pretend that I never heard it. After a moment of silence, Mr. Zhu gently rotated the money and walked to the top of Xian. He had a wide field of vision and could vaguely see the capital of the Qijin dynasty in the distance. There was no curfew and the lights were full of lights, just like a fireball in the night. Mr. Zhu said with a complicated expression, "To tell the truth, the top of a certain tower in Baiyujing invited me to be a guest at his place, and personally promised that as long as I was willing to go and obey their arrangements, not only can I be a deputy, the key is to give me the hope of walking on an avenue. As for who I am, I will not say. Just a little bit about the rules that buying and selling can't be benevolent and righteous." I have to admit, I did have a heartbeat. Lin Xian smiled and said, It's human nature to be moved, and it's a strange thing not to be moved. In the world of Qingming, there is an ancient saying without evidence. Besides Baiyujing, there are 14 in one state. This statement can be divided into two parts. One is the 14 states in the world, the land of one state came into being, and there is hope that a monk of the 14 realms will appear. It's not a certain number, but it's a kind of avenue opportunity that has its own providence. Then there can only be 14 states in a state map. It is absolutely impossible for 14 realms to appear at the same time, a state with mountains and rivers, even if the territory is as large as Qizhou, Yuzhou and others, it is destined to not have the qi number to support the 14 realm great monks. For example, the grandson and son Huaizhong of Zuanduguan in Qizhou, the latter traveled far away to another world, and once lent one of the 4 immortal swords, Tai Bai, to Heiran Bai. In addition to being similar in temperament to Bai Yi, in fact, he also believes that the senior sister Wang's son, who is called Empty Mountain, will definitely be able to enter the 14th realm. Sun Huaizhong deliberately left the boundaries of Zuanduguan and Qizhou. As a cultivator on the top of the mountain, Mr. Zhu knew very well that when Daoist's son went out for a long trip, it was very likely that Wang's son's retreat had reached a certain critical period. It's a pity that in the end it turned out that Wang and son failed to succeed. Then in this Ruzhou, because of the existence of Lin Zhongxian and Yashan, it almost completely cut off the possibility of someone Zhu breaking the bottleneck. Although Lin Zhongxian is not a qi trainer, the qi in a state circulates, no matter if you are a martial artist or a Taoist official. Someone Zhu asked curiously, in the future, is there a possibility that there will be 14 states at the same time in the 14 states of Qingming? Lin Zhongxian shook his head and said, it's impossible. Zhu, someone asked again, then take a step back and not stand side by side in the same era? In the next 1,000 years or even 2,000 years, will there be such a large number of 14 realms? It's like a village with 14 households. Feng Shui turns around and there is always a day. The only difference is that it is early and late. When Lin Zhongxian heard this, he smiled and said, Luqian once said that the small knowledge is not as good as the big knowledge and the young year is not as good as the big year. Then wait, you are a cultivator and I believe there will always be a bright day. Zhu Sun hesitated again and again, but couldn't help but ask in his heart, Master Lin, what are you going to do? Lin Zhongxian laughed it off. Lin Zhongxian, we've known each other for so many years, can't we tell? I don't and never ask who you want to win to be content. Someone Zhu sighed, Master Lin, it's really boring to chat with you. Lin Zhongxian stretched out his hand and slapped the green bamboo railing on the top of the mountain and said with a smile, because the wind blows the fire, I don't use much force. If you follow the trend, you will get twice the result with half the effort. Someone Zhu was holding the mill and spending money. The years were long, he was indulging and he indulged in wine and sex. The article was heard by everyone. Then you only need to win once and you can be immortal. Do not seek the reality of longevity with the heaven and the earth, but seek the immortal name of the sun and the moon. So for the time being you still have to live longer, after all you need to be at least one level higher. Someone Zhu said, I have something to discuss with you. Lin Zhongxian reached out and brushed over the railing, but it doesn't matter. Someone Zhu said, if the world is really in chaos and Qingming and several states are caught in war, I will strive to ensure the peace of Ruzhou, which requires the help of Lin Shi and Yashan. Lin Zhongxian nodded and said, I said simple things, please continue to say difficult things. Zhu said, if one day something is between the two and the world situation is in a stalemate, I hope Master Lin can help me to break this deadlock as soon as possible, so that the world can be restored to peace and order as soon as possible. A day is a day. Lin Zhongxian said, no problem. In the land of several states, the fire ignited a prairie. Ruzhou is temporarily on the wall, watching the fire from the other side. In fact, the trivial and difficult affairs of someone Zhu were just reversed on the side of Lin Zhongxian and Yashan. As the last sacrificial official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, Lin Zhongxian is just a veritable pure martial artist, not a qi practitioner, let alone a sword cultivator. Just like Chunyang Luyan, he once said bluntly to Qin Pingon, Master Lin's boxing skills are very high, and his swordsmanship is even higher. And Lu Qin once said to others that with or without a long sword in hand, there are two Lin Zhongxian. The old man Yang of the pharmacy often reads a landscape travel note compiled by Jianxian from a foreign country. When the old man saw Ning Yao, he mentioned this matter. The Sword Qi Great Wall has 3 officials, the sacrificial officials first and the criminal officials after. Then naturally everything is ready and only due to the east wind. Just wait for the hidden officials to show up. Although Lin Jiangxian is not optimistic about the battle between Qin Pingan and Chao Ci, he is still willing to wait and see for Qin Yingwen's swordsmanship achievements. As soon as a certain Zhu through his sleeves, he took a few steps back, bowed his head, lowered his head and said solemnly, Zhu Dezhuang, the Taoist official of Ruzhou, I would like to thank my dear friend Lin Shi. Lin Jiangxian clenched his fists in return. Zhu Xia stood up straight, feeling refreshed and all right, little fairy for the time being. Lin Jiangxian suddenly said, You and Gu Yang'a actually don't need to go to Zuanduguan to find Daoist Sunday. If you really want to see him, you might as well hurry now and go straight to Baiyujing. Sword of Coming Chapter 1196. Chapter 1196 Little Four States, Lake Laser. On Meifeng Island, plum blossoms are as thin as poetry. Female Crown Yangqing took a walk among them, breaking a plum blossom and carrying it. The ground was all white clouds condensed by water transportation. The most amazing thing is that these large and small white clouds naturally form petals. Next to her is Lei Yu, one of the 2 lake owners. She was born in a demon clan, but she was able to gain a firm foothold in this small 4 states and gradually grow into one of the 2 lake owners of the little 4 states, becoming this vast Luai's lake. The hostess. Previously they had gone to the outer world together to congratulate Yu Xiandao, the talisman who successfully joined the Dao Galaxy. Lei Yu said with a smile. That Zhou Xian, the look in your eyes is not subtle. How do you say, do you want to become a formal Taoist partner or have a dewy marriage? Yang Qing smiled and shook his head. Don't pull me into the fire pit together. Lei Yu pouted. The matter of men and women is the righteous avenue of yin and yang. You are so restrained you will have a lot of fun in vain. Yang Qing was silent, just thinking about his thoughts. As the highest Taoist priest of the Hongnong Yang clan in Yuzhou, Yang Qing with the Taoist name Mirage, she is also the deputy mountain master of Shoshan Pavilion. This made it difficult for her. So she had to leave the dojo and come here to hide in peace. As a result, she met Su Shiyuan, a self-proclaimed romantic child, which made her still not clean. The latest 10 people in the world are actually 11 just because the bottom 2 are tied for 10th. Of the 9 before them, Yudo was the top, Luchin was the second, and then was the master of the Bixiao cave whose dojo was located in the bright moonlight. These 4 are all recognized 14-realm cultivators. The contemporary masters of the Xuandu Temple in Qizhou are Sun Huaizhong, the martial artist Lin Jiangxian, Wu Shuangjiang of the Suichou Palace, Gao Gu of the Huayong Palace in the Difei Mountain of Yuzhou, and Yao Qing, the elegant minister of the Qingshan dynasty. It is said that the last time Wu Shuangjiang appeared in Zuanduguan, he already had the appearance of a cultivator of the 14th realm. So does it mean that Sun Daoist has secretly entered the 14th realm? Wolflin Division? Have you reached the 11th level of the legendary martial arts? Gao Gu, the Jua, ranked only after Wu Shuangjiang? Whether it's all a mystery. The wind is rolling and the clouds are surging and the flowers are seen in the fog. A short hunchbacked old Taoist, wearing a snow-white Taoist robe shrinking the mountains and rivers, appeared from his own Taoist temple among the plum blossoms here, carrying an ancient wooden suitcase in his hand. This place is located at the foot of Meifeng Mountain and is called Long Waipi. The top of the mountain is called the tip of the boat. Lei Yu leaned against an old plum tree with horned branches, and crossed her arms around her chest. Looking at the uninvited guest, she had no good expression on her face. Surnamed Wang, what are you doing here? The short-statured old Taoist bent down slightly, put the box lightly at his feet and said, Pin Dao came here to persuade you, don't drag the little Xizhou into the chaos of the world, it's not worth it. Lei Yu sneered and said, a lake is divided into 2.5 points, you can control me? I also advise you to keep geese as long as you keep geese. Don't meddle in your own business and be careful of internal strife, it's even more uneconomical. The old man ignored the threat of thunderstorms, shifted his gaze, looked at the foreign woman's crown and continued to say to himself, I also persuade Daoist Mirage and I persuade Hongnong Yang when I go back. Don't be impatient and say it's gone. Yang Qing looked calm and nodded. Tai Daoist friend's words must be brought to the family. Lei Yu sneered. This is very strange, you and Yu Zhangjiao don't have any personal friendship. If I remember correctly, there seems to be some personal grudge between you two? There is a personal grudge. The old Taoist nodded and said, but you said it all, it's a personal grudge. Yang Qing smiled and asked, Tai Daoist friend, I'm more curious, what do you think? The old Taoist said bluntly, it's very simple, I don't think that in this world who can replace Headmaster Yu, since no one can replace him, then don't make trouble. If the world is in chaos, people will die and many people will die. Yang Qing nodded and said, understood. Lei Yu smiled and said, to be honest, I also understand this sentence. It just so happens that I also have a curious thing. Since you are here, I will ask you. The old Taoist said, if you have any questions you will answer them and you will know everything you know. Lei Yu raised a palm and wiped his mouth. What ability do you use to manage my housework in Luai's lake? Rely on a lot. The old Taoist said, on the basis of the fire method, water method, earth method, talisman method, thunder method and sword method that Pindao has learned in this life, especially the skill of housekeeping, he can overcome the victory method. Lei Yu pretended to be surprised. Auntie only knew that you, a close neighbor, know so many techniques. Then I'm even more surprised. Why don't you Wang surnamed go to Baiyujing to get a headmaster and play tricks? The old Taoist said with a stern look. I can't be the headmaster of Baiyujing, and it must be more than enough to manage the boundaries of the small 4 states. Lei Yu's eyes were sharp and his back was straight. If that's the case, it's all coming, so don't leave it all. Just enough to weigh the weight of this Tai you guessed. Yang Qing smiled and said, it's better to wait until the end of the matter to make a decision. Before that, as Daoist Tai said, let's not make trouble. The old Taoist nodded and said, I have no problem here, it depends on the meaning of the Thunder Lake Lord. To prevent the 2 sides from fighting each other if they disagreed, Yang Qing had to overwhelm the guest and said with a smile, I won't see you off. The old Taoist reminded, fellow Mirage, remember to bring the words to the Hongnong Yang family. Yang Qing nodded with a smile. The old Taoist disappeared in a flash, but left the carrying box at his feet. After Lei Yu confirmed that the other party had left the Luai's lake boundary, he shook his head. This old man, the hero, is short of breath, he really goes back the more he lives. Yang Qing smiled and said, your statement contradicts itself. Lei Yu gave a cold snort and kicked the 3-layer wooden carrying box to pieces. The delicious food in the food box was scattered all over the floor in an instant. She laughed angrily. With this amount of food, my mother is full? It's not enough to put in the gaps between the teeth. Yang Qing said, the meaning of the surname Wang is very simple. I advise us not to have nothing to do when we are full, and do things according to our capabilities. The thunderstorm was silent, gnashing his teeth. Yang Qing said, don't regret it, even if I was willing to help just now, we still can't keep him. She sighed softly. There are many families and dojos like their own Hongnong Yang clan, and Difei Mountain Huayang Palace. It's just that there are also many Taoist officials with the surname of King Tai outside Baiyujing. 3 Baiyujing head teachers take turns in charge of a Qingming world for 100 years, holding the power of life and death. Dezhang taught Koming, and when dealing with people he could kill or not, and he would definitely not kill. In addition to not killing, Koming also has to teach himself to make up for his mistakes. For example, the previous city lord of Xianxia City, Zhang Kejia with the Taoist name Ancient, and the direct disciple of Mrs. Wei, the deputy city lord of Nanhua City, are all listed here. The second head teaches Yudo he can kill or not, he must kill. The third head taught Lu Chen whether to kill or not, it only depends on his mood. Lei Yu was suddenly a little surprised and flustered, because he saw his friend was full of tears. Yang Qing, why are you crying? Yang Qing regained his senses, froze for a moment, stretched out his fingers to wipe his tears, and laughed at himself. I remember some unpleasant old things. Thunderstorm hesitated, but in the end he didn't say anything. Because she knew that the reason why Yang Qing left Hongnong Yang's back then and went to Shoshan Pavilion to open a Sea Mountain Immortal Hall was to stay away from the sad place of seeing things and thinking of people. Yang Qing's only heart is her own younger brother. The sister and brother grew up together and they have a very good relationship. Yang Qing's sister taught them how to teach literacy and how to behave. Later the younger brother went to Earth Lung. Xianxia Dao was also escorted to Huayang Palace by her. It was the first time he went out to practice. Yang Qing was actually protecting the Dao in secret all the way and occasionally made some small mistakes. Face to face or send a letter to teach. Probably this is the so-called eldest sister like a mother. Yang Qing said with a faint expression, I just lost my mind and saw a blurry scene. Lei Yu asked directly, did you see the future? Yang Qing hesitated. It's hard to say. It's very complicated here, so it's hard to explain clearly. Lei Yu grinned and said, "It's okay, just tell me, what did you see?" Yang Qing said softly, "Mountain flowers are about to burn and running water is like fire." The old Taoist priest who left Meifeng did not go to the Taoist temple, but returned to the Sinan River where the old man raised many white geese. The old Taoist suddenly widened his eyes and said angrily, "Su Xun, you are a who has been hit by thousands of knives, and I will come here with a white goose." After a while the old Taoist became more angry and looked around. The goose thief had long since disappeared. The old man scolded and stomped his feet in a hurry. "Hey, totally three, I kindly passed on you a book, that's how I repaid the preacher. If you saw that your kid looked a bit similar to her, I wouldn't let you in. Really shouldn't be. When I went to Meifeng to see that girl, I was caught by a family thief. If I didn't pay attention, I regretted the beginning. The three fellow Daoists, I can't help you." King Nadongshan, Manjulong Road, sweet-scented osmanthus falling like rain. A femininist-looking son of Zhou Xian was holding a large white goose's neck in one hand and two more in the other. The young man smiled brightly and shouted loudly, "Eldest sister, say hello to the second sister. Today I will start the stove and light the fire myself and stew the goose in the iron pot." The master of the cave, Su Mian, when she appeared beside him, said helplessly, "Su Yuan, are you just like that to be an anonymous disciple?" The young man held up the fluttering white goose as if to scare his sister Su Mian with this. Su Mian waved his hand, "You can't do anything right when you're young." Su Yingzhen quickly came here from heaven and earth, and seeing this scene she couldn't help laughing. Unlike Su Mian, she said with a smile, "Well done." Su Xian said with a smile, "Even if the second sister said that, I still prefer the eldest sister's loss." Su Yingxian flicked his fingers and smashed his brother's forehead lightly. "I owe me." Su Xian said, "Eldest sister, second sister, I have talked with Luo Yi and Wu Shi, and they are not very willing to let Yongzhou Zhou Xian divination for good and bad luck in Bieja without authorization. I am hesitating, should I take a trip along that Dadu? Yufu dynasty?" Su Mian said softly, "Listen to my sister's advice, don't go into muddy waters." Su Ying said with a smile, "Wu Shi, the shady prince of Yushan Kingdom, has finally lived a comfortable life in Peizhou as the supreme emperor of Xianxia. Of course he is not happy that the little girl Zhou Xian chops the branches of the old camphor tree. Is nothing more than icing on the cake for Peizhou. What if it is an omen of great evil? To put it in a bad way, even the fortune of a state that was not evil at first has been forcibly tossed into evil. Since ancient times, the authenticity of so many nursery rhymes and prophecies, or how much is true and how much is false. Who can tell the difference? Zhou Xian only needs to be a little darker. Oh, the whole Peizhou will be chaotic, and Wuxi finally relied on the heroic means of vertical and horizontal to make the entire Pei. The state has stabilized and recognized the status of the alliance leader of Yushan Kingdom. Wuxi has been able to hold his breath. If he were an ordinary person, he would have already led his troops to kill the Ocean Temple. As for Luo Yi, I guess he is just looking at you as a sworn brother. In order to save face, I only went to echo Wuxi. The Hengyang dynasty was not among the four states. How did he get the title of fire officer, and the identity of the founding emperor? Who started at the bottom of the army. Son, it was a road that was completely killed step by step, and then I sat on the dragon chair. Obviously Huoguan Luo Yi and Shang Ho Wuxia are also one of the two candidates for 10 people in the world, and Su Ying's evaluation of Luo Yi is obviously higher. Su Xun nodded and said, "That's the truth." Su Mian said softly, "Luo Yi is a rare hero who has the kind of heroic spirit. He is loyal and responsible. On the other hand, Wuxi prefers to talk in his stomach. Continuing the relationship, you will be close to them in the future. You have to know what to do." Luo Yi, the fire officer, has spent his entire life in the military, and on the road of cultivation he holds a heavy treasure. It is a Taoist emperor bell. The ancient bell is engraved with the word Tian Ding. However, this thing has been tossed around in the Qingming world, and the Taoist officials who have handled it are high and low, no less than 10 people, and no one has been able to refine it. Until Luo Yi succeeded, it was probably because he had obtained a Taoist book of Taiqing Jade book before that. Back then Luo Yi was only in the Dongfu realm, so he successfully refined it, sacrificed this treasure, and threw it into flames for thousands of miles. Su Xian said impatiently, I know, I always like to lecture so much, eldest sister. If you don't have this flaw, you are really morally perfect." Su Ying tooted and said, Smooter. Walking on the golden road covered with sweet-scented osmanthus, a melodious bell rang suddenly. Entering a pure land rejoicing. The Buddha's heart is like a flower pointing to the moon, and the Taoist is proud of the drum in the morning and evening. The three brothers and sisters have their own thoughts. Although they are not in their positions and do not seek their political affairs, but in their positions as long as the world is in chaos, how can they be alone? Thinking about it is worrying, it is very difficult to think about. Zhou Xian suddenly said, "Before I went to Ganhu, I first went to Defei Mountain to listen to the preaching of Lord Gao Gong. Then on the way to Ganhu by boat I heard the two news, you should all know it. Bar." Su Mian hummed. Su Yingjing said with sincere admiration, "Gao Gongzhu, you are so bold. You really deserve the name of the Jiyue." It turned out that at the end of that preaching, Gao Gu announced two things. Gao Fu, his disciple, served as the owner of Defei Mountain. Let a foreign Taoist priest named Mao Ju be the new palace master of Huayang Palace. In fact, it's the weirdest of weirdest things. Gao Fu is Gao Gu's young disciple. Although he is not a closed-door disciple, Gao Fu is a recognized genius of Taoism both inside and outside Huayang Palace. It stands to reason that Gao Fu, who is not yet in his realm, takes over as the palace owner. Even if it is reluctant, it is better than letting an unknown Mao Ju take over the Huayang Palace, and letting Gao Fu be the owner of Defei Mountain in a certain sense. In fact, Gao Fu was expelled from the Huayang Palace. Su Mian explained, "That hair cone, I guess he is very likely the real person with white bones." Su Xun shook the three big white geese in his hand, so off. In the world of Qingming, because there is no 100 schools of thought, all the monks in the world are Taoist. The key to the Dharma lineage of a cultivator is to see who the master is and which Taoist temple the master is from. As the saying goes, a warrior is like reincarnation and he needs to be a teacher like a father. Therefore, it is not bad for the Taoist priests in the Qingming world to find a teacher. For example, in Haoran Tianxia, Wan Qiong, the first suzerain of Longquan Jianzong, was born in Fengxue Temple, one of the ancestral families of the Aquarius continent. Although he is a sword cultivator, Wan Qiong's Taoist identity still belongs to the cultivator of the military family. There is also the ranger Su Ruo, who is also a sword cultivator, but still belongs to the Mahist disciple. In the same way, Xuandu Guan is a lineage of Taoist sword immortals. Even though there are a lot of swordsmen in Guan, it can be said that it is the best in the world, but it is still a Taoist priest who is a pedigree of the 8 classics. Another example is Yao Qing, the elegant minister of the Qingshan dynasty, who has mixed knowledge and is especially close to Confucianism and legalism, but who dares to say that Yao Qing is not a Taoist official. Zhou Xian was looking for a tutor, and the first candidate in his mind was actually Gao Gu, the giant mountain of Defei Mountain. It's a pity that the other party saw through his mind. Gao Gu didn't think that he could inherit the legal system of Huayang Palace, nor could he provoke the Tao of Defei Mountain. Originally, according to Su Ziyuan's calculation and prediction, as long as he entered Huayang Palace, even if he could not succeed the palace owner, he would be able to become the new mountain owner of Defei Mountain in the future. Next is Wuzhou, a monk of the 14 realms. Su Ziyuan's father also thought so, but Su Xian couldn't even enter the gate of the hidden dojo. Obviously he didn't like his qualifications. The last is the surname of Shanin Yuka Wang. Fortunately it was okay and I went to the doctor in a hurry. After all, Su Xian found the real famous doctor. I stayed there for many years and became an anonymous disciple. It was given to Su Ziyuan's become a fine C. Su Xian said, "Eldest sister, second sister, what about you guys?" Su Mian said, "As a daughter you always have the responsibility of being a daughter. Besides, when King Nadongshan was sealed off I have to ask for a small explanation." Su Yingjing said, "I'm different. I listen to my father's advice and I will never go down the muddy road if I don't get involved." Su Mian asked, "Su Yuan, you've met Yang Qing, what's her attitude?" It is said that the owner of the Taoist Mirage is proficient in Ziwei Doshu and Taishan Shu, and is recognized as the best in the world. This kind of Taoist priest who can tell fortunes and can approve fates, it is best not to provoke them if they cannot provoke them. Su Xun smiled suddenly. "Eldest sister, I heard that you were out in the sky and asked that old show to get a seal and a folding fan." The Taoist officials of King Nadongshan and Tainliang feudi, the latter respected Chao Ci more, and the former more like Chen Yingguan. Su Ying said with a smile, "It's the real thing, I can testify. Apart from the folding fan of stamps, your eldest sister has the cheek to ask when sheng for 2 stamps, by Xianxian and Xianxian. Su Mian said helplessly, I'm just asking for these items for the 2 guests in the cave. Su Ying tut, it's not fake, it's not real. Su Xian nodded and said, I heard about this from Thunderstorm earlier and I felt like I was struck by lightning. I was heartbroken. The eldest sister who promised not to marry for the rest of her life has the intention of marrying. Su Mian was too lazy to explain. Su Xian snorted coldly and said, if he wants to be my brother-in-law, Qin Pingon has to pass the level of my future brother-in-law first. Isn't he Jianxiu, so I'll ask him about Jianxiu. Su Mian laughed angrily. Nonsense. Su Yingxi jokingly said, why don't you say that he is a martial artist of Zhijing and ask him a fist fight? Su Xian shook his head and said, I'm not stupid, I'm guilty of asking about swords and I don't need to think about asking about boxing. Now why don't you ask the wine and fight poetry? Su Xian suddenly laughed to herself. The 3rd female junior holds gold bricks. I heard that Qin Pingon is only in his early 40s. If he married the eldest sister, how many gold bricks would he make? Su Yingxiao nodded and said, your sister's dowry, but the whole cave is filled with green mud. This statement is more than suitable. You just have to be careful about being questioned by Ning Yao. Su Mian became angry and glared, both of you shut up. Su Shiyuan said softly, not long ago I heard my father mention an old story, saying that the eldest sister once passed by a small place called Zouqing when she was young, and met an unknown expert who read the words of the relatives, and he helped the eldest sister to approve the order. After passing a few words written by the eldest sister in the fortune-telling booth, she said that the eldest sister is born from the heart. The words are like the person, the literary skills and the truth are the same. And finally he gave a comment, Su Mian, his air is soft and clear but his bones are cold, his spirit is clear enough to be immortal and his coldness is enough to die. Thank goodness, eldest sister, you were so blessed that you didn't take him as a liar, and you were willing to pay for a bankruptcy and disaster relief. Fortunately, the other party was also willing to point out the solution. Let the eldest sister not commit vulgarity in the future, and do not be too empty in her cultivation, which is why she has achieved today's achievements. Su Yingxing held back her laughter. Actually, what she wrote back then was not just a few words, but 2 words that she always considered to be the most scrutinized words in the world. Su Mian scolded, Su Ying, believe it or not, I tore your mouth. Su Ying snorted, I'm scared to death, someone wants to kill my relatives righteously. Su Xian smiled and said, big sister and second sister, do you know what love at first sight is? It's just walking on the road and just looking at someone, it's like bumping into him. Su Yingxing wondered, Su Yuan, did you fall in love with that Yang Qing at first sight? Su Shiyuan smiled and did not speak. Su Mian said, don't always think about these things. Study the secret book, see that Tai Taoist friends pass to you. Although it is a medical book in name, it points directly to the avenue. Su Xun snorted, if you tell the truth, if it falls into my hands, she will be considered unkind to others. Just like the words she repeatedly complained about, she can't help but say the most subtle way and pass it down to the next level. The most shallow people, fortunately, the river is going down and they are not abolished, they are fortunate. Su Xian sighed, if you want chaos, then chaos. It's nothing more than a hero killing a hero. Both parties are famous. Anyway, they are all heroes in this world. Zhu said, well, it's not that the literati are not free. What's wrong is that the poor are not free. That's why the poor literati who are still scolding the sky and the earth are the most free. They don't understand anything and dare to say anything. Don't worry about it, just stew the goose in the iron pot. Su Yingxing said in surprise, you really killed the stewed meat to eat? Su Xun rolled his eyes and said, otherwise? You've worked so hard to steal it, that is, to learn from the master and treat them as ancestors and serve them as uncles? Su Yingxin turned to look at Su Mian. Su Mian smiled and said, I'm going to prepare the condiments such as cinnamon, star anise, pepper bean paste, old vinegar and small grinding sesame oil. Su Yingxing immediately echoed, add some cooking wine, it will taste better. The great Chaozong at the entrance of a cave in a forbidden area is engraved with 4 bright red characters, Lu Tai marriage, on the cliff of the book, which is inscribed. However, Yao Qing, who has read a lot, knew the 4-character list, Wuding Chaoga, which was a 4-character list written by Yang, but it was smoothed out by later generations with sharp tools. After that, Yinzhou only had a Liangjing mountain, and the founder of the mountain was Chaoge, who was born in Chaotian. Yao Qing was invited to protect the customs here. This white jade square on the top of the solitary peak is empty except for one person and one table. There are several Taoist books on the table, a pot of wine, a pair of chopsticks, and several dishes of appetizers. These days, Yao Qing has been sitting here alone to help people guard the customs. Except for occasionally reading, drinking, and eating, this Taoist priest, known as Yaxiang, is like a clay statue. During the period, there were ancestors from Great Chaozong and Liangjingshan, standing far away at the border of the formation, trying to ask Yao Qing about the retreat. Before coming to the Great Chao sect, Yao Qing had already greeted His Majesty the Emperor and the national teacher by O. During his long trip, even if the sky fell, he didn't have to think about delivering news to him. The Qingxin dynasty is located in Bingzhou, along with the Qijing dynasty in Ruzhou and the Xianhuang dynasty in Yuzhou. They are one of the 10 most powerful dynasties in the Qingming world. Yuzhou is under the jurisdiction of Bai Yunlu, while Bingzhou is under the jurisdiction of Qingqiqing. Yao Qing, the elegant minister with the name Zimei, the Taoist name Shouling, the first assistant of the three dynasties. Yao Qing's Taoist age is only 1,000 years, and he has been regarded as the most promising to enter the 14 realms together with Gao Gu, whose Taoist name is Jiue, the small group of mountain monks. The recognized Ascension realm complete monk, which means that Yao Qing is only half a step away from the 14th realm. Yao Qing is often invited by Green City to give lectures on Taoism. And the headmaster Lu, who is known as Little Yao Qing of Baiyujing, must be there again and again to cheer, either by applauding hard or cheering loudly. Yao Qing's most famous move to move the world, of course, is not the title of Yaxiang, but the killing of 3 corpses on his own path of cultivation, and it is not the ordinary killing of 3 corpses to mend and improve Taoism. Instead, he successfully cut open a clear Taoist heart and created 3 corpse deciphering immortals. Therefore, each corpse deciphering immortal, in addition to being unable to create a pair of yang gods, has a yin deity. The 3 completely autonomous corpse deciphering immortals, within 500 years, have all become qi practitioners in the upper 5 realms, and together with the yin gods, they are equivalent to 6 incarnations of Yao Qing. Coupled with Yao Qing's yin and yang gods outside his real body, it is equivalent to having 8 clones. It is said that Yao Qing also mastered 2 great talismans. One was the talisman bestowed by Daozu himself, and the other was the Sanshan talisman created by the headmaster Bai Yujing. Yao Qing benefited a lot and was extremely proficient. Yao Qing picked up a copy of Plain Questions, which was poorly engraved. It was bought when he was a young student. The 3 coins of silver to buy books at that time were saved by Yao Qing's savings. After flipping through the books for a while, Yao Qing raised his head and looked into the distance. Outside the great formation, the mountains stretched out green, and a large river meandered away like a needle. Looking back, Yao Qing picked up the chopsticks and started drinking and eating. I don't know who will be in the world in the future holding the round blue sky in his arms. In the 14 states of Qingming, in a certain state, there is a dominant Taoist immortal mansion. After all, it is a minority. In more cases, it is still confrontation between 2 or a bunch of first-class dojos are not top-notch. For example, in Zhuzhou, where there are many tourists, there are Qingxi Palace, which is one of the ancestral courts of Taoist Fulu at the same time. Yuzhou is the Huayang Palace of Difei Mountain, which competes with Hongnong Yang's and Shoshan Pavilion. In Yongzhou, the Immortal Staff sect and Bingjishan wanted to overwhelm each other. Among them Bingjishan, because 2 great masters who were among the top 10 martial arts critics recently appeared at the same time, and the limelight was in full swing, so it was brought up again by people who care about it, because the only place where Bingjishan was criticized was that they were the only ones in the past. A large sect that formed an alliance with Song Maolu, the leader of the rice thief, even temporarily tore up the covenant before the matter was exposed, choosing to stand by and watch the many Taoist officials of the rice thief's lineage by Yujing's Hong, who was accused of guilt if they are beaten and killed, or detained or removed from their names, they will never be hired, and they may not serve as Taoist officials. You must know that in Yongzhou, which has a vast territory and is dominated by water transportation, it is said that when the line of rice thieves was at its peak, there were as many as 1 million private Taoist priests. In Yinzhou in the past, the Great Chaos sect and Liangjingshan were even more deadly enemies. Of course, it is very different now and it has changed. Today's Yinzhou, even more than any other state, conforms to the strict sense of the dominance of a single family. During the period when sect master Su Jun and Dailu Chaoge retreated together, in fact the Great Chaos sect and the respective lower sects of Liangjingshan have been established. But because the ancestor statue has not been hung, no invitation has been issued to the outside world. Yao Qing smiled and turned to look at the cave door. Chaoge's move is not only making wedding clothes for others, but also making wedding clothes for himself. All her plans were to help Taoist companion Su Jun take the lead and try to reserve a seat in advance. After all, there is a gentleman Zhong Kue from Tong Yezhou in the vast world. Yao Qing seldom admires a person, but the reconciliation of Daoist friends really impresses Yao Qing. He worked hard to cultivate Taoism and cultivated a peak state of ascension realm. This is also the only reason Yao Qing is willing to make an exception to help people protect customs. Otherwise, if he gets involved in this kind of Yinzhou affairs, the Baiyijing Yuqing Palace will definitely keep an account. The stakes are significant, the impact is far-reaching after all, it may involve the birth of a future cultivator of the 14th realm. Today a pair of Taoist couples who are very different in age and realm are going out together. The female crown Chaoge with the Taoist name Fu Can, with a pale face, gave 1,000 blessings. There is a Laowa appearance. She fell again and now she is just a golden elixir. A ghost. On the other hand, Su Jun has already reached the ascension realm successfully, and it is very possible that he is still standing at the threshold of a certain avenue. Yao Qing doesn't care about this, each has his own fate and each has his own path to heaven. Yao Qing stood up and said with a smile, "It's nothing, the mountains don't turn the water and helping others is helping yourself." This time around it was really easy. Of course, Yao Qing is the backbone of this protection. But in addition to this, in addition to the two old patriarchs who were responsible for the establishment of the next sect, all the monks from the upper 5 realms of the 2 sects gathered on the hills of the Great Chao sect. Layer upon layer, all open. What is the immortal money consumed for this? And what is a cave that madly absorbs the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Yao Qing said, except for Headmaster Lu who glanced here, there was no abnormal movement. Yao Qing had noticed a hint of prying eyes before. Sure enough, it was the Headmaster Lu of Baiyujing. After being discovered by Yao Qing at that time, Zhangjiao Lu actually said with a face, "There are so many strange people in the world, is it possible that only the poor Daoist will be fed and supported?" Chaoge frowned slightly. Su Jun smiled and said, "With Xiang helping to protect the customs and Headmaster Lu who has seen this place, it is really foolproof." Yao Qing nodded. This is Su Jun's uniqueness. The words this person speaks are all sincere. 1 person and 4 sect masters must be an unprecedented feat. As for whether it is a newcomer or not, it is difficult to say for the time being. Yao Qing said, "Then I'll go home." Chaoge smiled sweetly and said, "How can there be such a way of hospitality? Why not let Xiang abbot both of the 2 lower ceremonies?" Yao Qing smiled and said, "How can there be such a way of hospitality? Isn't it revenge for kindness?" Chaoge burst out laughing. Su Jun slapped his head and said, "The younger generation is here to send Xiang off." Yao Qing nodded, and the shape of the rainbow instantly traveled thousands of miles away. Chaoge tugged at Su Jun's sleeve and said softly, "Husband, I guess Yao Qing has already entered the 14th realm." Su Jun said with joy on his face, "This is a great good thing. Why didn't you say it earlier? I should at least say congratulations to Xiang." When speaking, the man did not forget to move gently and gently held his wife's hand. Holding the hand of the child will grow old together with the child regardless of life or death. 10,000 years old camphor, 8,000 big tune. In the Yufu dynasty outside the temple of Aozhen God, a grand ceremony with heavy rituals is now being held. However, the female emperor Zhou Xian, who was the main priest of the grand ceremony, was still taking a break from her busy schedule, and came to a mountain with many taboos tonight. She can only stay here for an hour, and she needs to return to the temple of O God immediately. The 14th great monk, Tain Wuzhou's birthday is April 14th. Her dojo is located here in Yongzhou, a hidden hilltop with swords and halberds protruding all over the mountains and rivers. Beiju Luzhou in the vast world has Zhongtiao Mountain in the north-south direction, and Yongzhou in the Qingming world also has it, but the mountains are in the east-west direction, and the ancestral mountain is called Jiufeng Mountain. But since Wuzhou retreated to the 14th realm, the mountain has been closed for a long time. Because it has been too long since he appeared, the world mistakenly thought that Wuzhou had been reincarnated as a soldier. After all, even if the talent is as high as Wuzhou according to the deduction results of Bai Yujing, Wuzhou is only 60% sure. However, regardless of the change of dynasties and the change of national surnames, no one dared to trespass here. In history, some Taoist officials who were lucky enough to search for treasures here without exception were either unable to enter the mountains at all. Either he broke the restrictions on the mountains and rivers, finally saw Jufeng Mountain, and was instantly killed by the sword formation that started quietly with it. There are no Taoist temples in the mountains, but there is a Kuzu temple belonging to the Pure Land school of Buddhism. The founding emperor of the Yufu dynasty was a monk from this temple. His ancestral home is in a small place called Zishanwei, not far from this mountain. A young woman with a crown sat cross-legged on the futon, and on the low table in front of her was a large pile of chips. Chao, a treasury official in the yamen of the Ministry of War of the Yufu dynasty, but today he is qualified to sit opposite Wuzhou with the Empress Zhou Xian. He looked at the pile of bamboo chips with numbers engraved on them. It was clear that they were made of ordinary materials. Wuzhou looked at the slightly restrained young empress and smiled. "Don't worry, I'll give you a straight word. With me in Yongzhou no one will trouble you. As for whether they dare or not, I won't do it. Guaranteed, I only guarantee that if they come, there will be no return, so you will definitely not give up halfway in the grand ceremony of the whole world." Zhou Xian nodded silently and verbally thanked the other party, which was completely unnecessary. Wuzhou glanced in the direction of Bai Yujing since Yudo refused that deal, then Bai Yujing had to pay a little price. Wuzhou retracted his gaze, looked at the middle-aged man sitting next to Zhou Xian and asked, "I heard that you are also proficient in this way? When you lead troops to fight in your lifetime, will you plan ahead?" The man smiled and said, "I don't dare to be, I just like it, am not proficient." In the private residence of the Yufu dynasty in the capital, the man who studied the astrology and fortune-telling opened a hidden dojo in the study called the Fire Pearl Forest. Wuzhou smiled and said, "Chaozhou Fox, I heard that you and a certain Taoist priest in Lingbao City's Phantom Temple were officials of the same dynasty during their lifetimes, and they worked together in the art of war." Chaozhou said, "The art of war is not as high as he is, and he is the real soldier who is like a god, and has reached a kind of transformation. The Zhiga Palace in Lingbao City is similar to the Jinyue Palace in Biyun Tower, and its status is detached, while the Zhiga Palace has 36 Taoist temples, of which Fangma Temple also governs many Taoist temples, one of which is the Xianling Temple, which is not famous. The Guanzhu is an old-looking Taoist priest. He and his Taoist companions live in seclusion here to practice and write military books. This old man with the Taoist name Pharmacist occasionally goes out for wandering, holding a Lingsho wooden walking stick from Guoshan. But they will not leave the boundary of Zhiga Palace." Zhou Xian said, "In terms of military merit, Mr. Chao is no weaker than the other party. The man beside him was once regarded as the daring of the country, and the first person who made great contributions to the frontier. After his death, he was posthumously presented to Tai Wei by the emperor, with the posthumous title Zhenwu. Chao Zhouhu and the Daoist Xianlingwen Taoist who entered Bai Yujing as a heroic spirit to practice Taoism, two peerless famous generals, were equally famous during their lifetimes, and both had the same posthumous titles, and even the specifications of the tombs after death were the same." Wuzhou twitched the corners of his mouth with a slightly sarcastic tone. "That's one invincible in civil wars and one in external wars? It is indeed the two jewels of the country. Every world, every dynasty, every generation, there are countless famous generals in the world. The reason why Wuzhou knows the opposite person is not the other side's achievements, but the other side once said something when he was old. In the early years, Wuzhou listened to it and remembered this person's name along the way. 12 or 13, a thief who does not hesitate to be a thief, a desperado, a thief and kills everyone on the road. The 14th and 5th are embarrassed and become a thief. With a little knowledge, when he sees injustice on the road, he will kill if he is uncomfortable. At the age of the weak crown, as a general and commander of the army, he is a good thief. To be a general, to be a commanding general, to kill, to stop killing, to save the world with a killing sword, to save the people in troubled times from death." Chao Zhouhu smiled and said, "100 years in the sun with a flick of a finger, the achievements of fame and career are limited. Moreover, compared to the magnificent embroidered tigers and the savage literary sea, the The so-called generals of us who lead troops in fights are really only the bravery of ordinary people in one time and one place. Already. In fact, this time Zhou Xian came to Jiufeng Mountain to get 2 true words from Wuzhou, but only one of them was obtained for the time being, so Zhou Xian was not willing to leave. Wuzhou has noticed 2 visions, one in Yashan in Ruzhou and the other in Daqiazong in Yinzhou. The latter is still in Wuzhou's expectation, the former is a bit baffling. Why didn't the Yuzhou Yuka from Jintong Dojo not deal with Lin Jiangxian? In fact, in addition to refining things, Wuzhou is also good at arithmetic and observing the sky. As long as the qualifications are good enough, you can learn anything very quickly. Others are envious. There are only a handful of Qingming cultivators who can be regarded by her as a Taoist friend. Among them there is a certain Zhu who is named Lu Peiing from Ruzhou. The 2 sides have never been masked, but when we meet, Wuzhou is willing to take the initiative to chat with each other. She remembered that she once met a wandering Taoist priest with the Taoist name Chunyang, and she was willing to take a look at it, and even at a certain moment her heart was like stagnant water and she was tempted. Unfortunately there is no fate. And in the dark, Wuzhou also noticed that this heartbeat was not right. But over the years, Wuzhou has not been able to find any clues, not even the object of suspicion. Otherwise, with the realm and temper of Wuzhou, once there is an object of suspicion, you dare to sneak up on yourself. In this blue and dark world, is it possible that the Taoist ancestor borrowed your courage? Wuzhou smiled and said, "Girl, you don't need to worry too much about Bai Yujing. With the consistent behavior of Headmaster Yu, he will not deliberately target you and the Yufu dynasty. What you really need to worry about is that it will not be held in the near future." Yuqing Palace is discussing matters, especially discussions, but none of the Taoist officials took the initiative to propose this agenda, and Yu Zhangjiao did not give a conclusion, so that Baiyujing Taoist officials have room to maneuver. No matter how much they criticized Yudou, the Taoist officials of all veins in the Qingming world and the monks on the mountain outside Baiyujing, there was only one thing and there was no accusation, that is, Yudou never showed favoritism. One of Yudou's 3 best friends before he entered Baiyujing died in Tianweishan. Yudou chose to let it go at first and then killed him with his own hands. Lu Changzhou, who used to call himself a Taoist, died under Yudoujian like this, and Jiang Zhaoma became the later Zikalu. A great cultivator of Ascension Realm Falu, once known as Dare to Ask Haiyue to listen to the arrangement, died under Yudoujian. And it is the most thorough soul flying and dispersing on the mountain. In the true sense of the death of the body, there is no possibility of reincarnation. And this monk's Taoist companion calls himself Yellow Leaf Taoist. It is the female sword cultivator of the Ascension Realm treasure scale. It was Xing Lu with the Taoist name Tianqi, who contributed a lot and helped a lot in Yudou's cultivation in the middle and early stages, and even donated a treasure to his friend Yudou. Yudou of Xing Lu can be said to be both a friend and a brother. Therefore, when Yudou cut Lu Changzhou, who had already gone crazy at the time of Tianweishanjian, Taoist officials in the world could still understand a little bit. But Yudou's killing of Xinglo was not without shocking the world. You must know that the Xianxia cave of the Jinyue Palace in Baiyujing, the capital of Huangjie, is ready to open the door to accept Xinglo. Zhou Xian breathed a sigh of relief. Wuzhou narrowed his eyes. He had a chew. Look back and see who came to ask the 2 headmasters about the matter during the Yuqing Palace discussion. So Wuzhou sold a favor. Zhou Xian, as long as you don't tamper with the results of the divination, you will definitely not be caught in the Yanxia cave of Jinyue Palace. Zhou Xian hurriedly got up and made a bow. With Wuzhou's words, Zhou Xian and Yufu Zhu's are equivalent to taking a reassurance. Wuzhou teased, "Xian girl, don't fight against mean and feud, and don't feel that the great kindness is unrequited." Zhou Xian sat down again and said with a face, "How dare you?" Wuzhou moved the bamboo chips on the table and smiled in his heart. What Inzhou Chaoga asks for is nothing more than a real emperor in the world. She is very cooperative. Chao Zhouhu nodded, knowing it in his heart. Zhou Xian sighed. It's really a means of reaching the sky, and Zhou Xian is ashamed. Wuzhou smiled and said, "You are still very young. If you give you thousands of years of careful planning, it will not be worse than Chaoga." Chao Zhouhu asked, "This time I will follow His Majesty to Jiufeng Mountain to meet the seniors. I have something to ask the seniors for advice." Wuzhou nodded and said, "Let's hear it." Chao Zhouhu asked, "Can't Baiyujing condense all the demons in the outer world into the size of a mustard seed, and then keep them tightly locked up? Is it because the inner demons of Qi practitioners are constantly appearing, and every Qi practitioner in the world is constantly appearing. Sure, it has become the source of living water for the transformation of the outer demons, so it is better to block it? Wuzhou asked back. The size of a mustard seed? Is it big or small? Chaozhou Fox was stunned for a while. Wuzhou sneered and said, it's easy to worry about eating radishes. How to cure the celestial demons from outside the sky has always been the greatest achievement that the Taoist officials of the past dynasties of Baiyujing have tirelessly pursued. So much so that there are rumors that whoever can solve this big problem will have the hope of taking over the Qingming world from Daozu. And Taoist ancestors can rest assured to travel far to pursue the Tao. Not only Baiyujing but the great cultivators of the various states also thought hard about this, not hesitated to spend their minds and efforts, and hoped to find a solution once and for all. It's a pity that for thousands of years Taoism, swordsmanship, talisman, magical powers. No matter how you combine and match and what formations you create, they are still only means to treat the symptoms but not the root cause, and even some methods have been proven not only can't defeat the outer demons but a negative salary to fight the fire. Wuzhou's monastic life is very free, so she also wants to solve this unresolved problem for 10,000 years. In history, there are two people who are closest to the truth and dare to say that this question has a solution or no solution at all. They are the big headmaster of Baiyujing Ko Ming and the younger brother of Xuandu Guansun Guanju. But unfortunately one has not yet built enough measurement tools, and the other has died halfway, which is a half assistance. Assuming that all the outer demons can be regarded as a cultivator of the 15th realm. Wuzhou slowly said, assembly. Exhaustive methods. Description, words, names and realities. Swordsmanship, talisman, distinction. Words, no signs, paintings. Names, disorder and order, empty collections are not empty. Wuzhou's opinion actually coincides with what Lu Qin leaked to Qin Pingan. After the big headmaster Ko Ming stepped down as the lord of Qingsui City, he has actually been committed to solving the problem of transforming the outer demons. But the biggest problem is that Ko Ming found that he wanted to complete the instrument envisioned in his mind, and his knowledge was too narrow and his magical powers were too small, so his Taoism was not enough, and his mental strength was not good. Only then did the great headmaster Ko Ming's mysterious disappearance in Baiyujing turn into 3 cleanliness. Wuzhou glanced at the thoughtful Chaozhou Fox and said with a smile, it's not that I look down on you, this matter is not at a level that you can touch. Chaozhou Fox, listen to my advice and eat your fill. Don't think about this in the future, at least I can come to a conclusion. For you it's meaningless and just wasting time. It's better to get out and win some fame in the world. The sky is high and the sky is high so that you who are so-called super smart don't get ripped apart. The reason why the ground is thick with blood flow is that you smart people who always like to try to jump and touch the sky will not be a piece of paper when you land, and it will be broken when you step on it in the sun. Chao Zhouhu clasped his fists and said with a smile, teach me. Wuzhou waved his hand, let's all go back, do your duty and make a lot of difference. Years apart from the palace. Today a pair of Taoist companions came from afar. The old man was holding a wooden staff of spiritual longevity. His face was old but he was not old. His Taoist companion Zhi Hongfu was standing beside him. She was not a beauty in the general sense, she was very heroic. The palace master Wu Shuangjiang personally entertained the guests and took them up to the Stork Tower, and on the top floor watched the rolling river and the Zilongtai, which seemed to be the mainstay. After going downstairs he went to Zilongtai. Wu Shuangjiang called to the Taoist official in the building, Gao Ping. There was a stone table chessboard in the 8-wind pavilion on the side of Jiangxin Zilongtai. Among them the most elegant game was played. When they boarded the island in the middle of the river and walked to the pavilion on the top of the mountain together, the old man with a wooden staff smiled and said, thank you Palace Master Wu for the gift of the book that year. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, Pharmacist Li Zhongyunbo gave you the military book, thank me for what I did. The woman holding the red whisk spoke without restraint. Palace Master Wu, why should you pretend to be stupid? If Zhang Yunbo didn't get your advice, how dare he forge this cause and effect? Wu Shuangjiang smiled and said, Miss Zhang Xian is still as daring as before, and her demeanor is the same as before. Li Yaoshi said, I didn't enter the Suichou Palace to cultivate Taoism and chose to settle in Baiyujing Lingbao City. I have failed Palace Master with good intentions. Wu Shuangjiang shook his head and said, it's nothing, heroes are not at the mercy of fate. Zhang Xian sighed, is Palace Master Wu talking to the master? She was able to get married with her husband back then. In fact, to a large extent she had to thank Zhang Yuanbo for his help in the old month. That's why this time she joined hands to do last year's extermination of the palace. Wu Shuangjiang smiled and did not speak. Because they did not deliberately cover their tracks when they climbed the building or the island this time, a group of people soon came to join in the fun and stayed in the pavilion early to wait. Among them is Zhang Yuanbo with the Taoist name, Dragon in the Cave, the Fairyland. At first glance, it was just a sloppy old man with a rosacea nose, white clothes and white hair, and he was old-fashioned. Zhang Yuanbo likes to drink the most in his life, but he drinks very slowly every time. The old man recognized that there were 3 ways to drink on the table, and he squinted and shivered. Zilongtai was originally Zhang Yuanbo's dojo. As soon as Qing Quan and the others came, the old immortal took the initiative to move. Don't look at the appearance of a bad old man now. When he was young he also had a big beard, played games and had a good drink which was even more majestic. The prince of the mountain Yu concubine and Xianxia, who has a green bamboo hairpin on his head, are Taoist companions. Wu Shuangjiang's direct daughter Wu Tabu, the Taoist name is Dengzhu. However, the second in command of the Sui Chu Palace, the Sui Shomon Bai Luo, did not show up today. This youthful appearance was a private official in the palace, and was nicknamed Xiao Bai by Wu Shuangjiang. At first glance he was the kind of person who never got angry and was very talkative. There are no outsiders in the pavilion. At this moment Yu concubine and Daoist are kissing me and me. The man stretched out his hand to touch Xie Chuntiao's thigh and rubbed his palm lightly. This elasticity, can those so-called beauties who are as skinny as would have? Young people know shit. Xie Chuntiao punched the back of his man's hand, causing Yu concubine to raise his hand and shake his arm vigorously. This man is like the reincarnation of a lecher. He is tossing around at night and during the day. It's endless. Now that the palace master and the guests are about to reach the top of the mountain, they dare to be so rude. 2 sword cultivators, one old and one young, arrived with swords before Wu Shuangjiang appeared on the mountaintop. Qing Quan had seen the flirtation in the pavilion from a distance as early as on his way to Yujian, walked up the steps of the pavilion and said with a smile, "If you untie your hair bun, wouldn't it mean that the boy is riding the big horse while holding the reins?" Yu Yes' eyes lit up at first and then said with shy eyebrows, "I don't dare, I haven't tried it, I don't know how it tastes." Xie Chuntiao, who likes to talk dirty the most, is still afraid of this. The woman threw a wink at Qing Quan. "Unfortunately I'm just good at talking but I don't know the level of swordsmanship." Qing Quan laughed and said, "Isn't it enough if you have the skill in your mouth?" The woman smiled and said, "Apart from being a joke, an old bachelor like you probably hasn't even used the opportunity to brush your guns in front of you, right?" The boy like Jinxiu beside Qing Quan said angrily, "Are you too disgusting talking like this?" Yu concubine, who was originally jealous, sighed, but he wasn't happy anymore. "Nalan burns the reed, I feel disgusting, the ears are on you, don't listen if you have the ability." Nalan Xiaowei couldn't help but scolded her mother, "You two are a perfect match." Qing Quan, who was going to quarrel with the woman, saw the figure in the distance on the top of the mountain, and swallowed the dirty words that came to his mouth. In his hometown Qing Qian never lost much in quarrels. He only served one person, Qin Pingon, a hidden official who used to fight side by side in the city. In fact, he was not very convinced because Qin Pingon liked to use Howren's various dialects when he quarreled, but Qing Quan couldn't understand it at all. Wu Ji, who used to be a clerk at the upside-down mountain storkin, when the girl changed her name to Nian Windowflower, she couldn't help but ask, "Qing Quan, is Qin Pingon really so good at scolding people?" In my impression, Qin Pingon passed by the hanging mountain twice and both stayed at his own storkin. Qing Quan nodded and said, it's amazing, I and a certain trash together can't quarrel with Lord Yingguan. If you don't believe it you can ask Nalan Lao Jianxian, he has also learned." Nalan Xiaowei nodded and said, "It's very powerful. First I opened a wine shop and then I went to the summer palace. When I spoke I became more and more yin and yang. Every word and a sword can poke people's hearts." Wu Ji said, "That's the problem with your sword Qi Great Wall's atmosphere. I remember that when Qin Pingon first went to Upside Down Mountain he was polite and well-behaved, not to mention quarreling, and he wouldn't blush with others. It is estimated that if Qin Yingguan was present he would have given her a thumbs up, and then praised from the bottom of his heart, Miss Nian is really smart." Xie Chuntiao covered his mouth and smiled and said, "He is indeed a serious person, except that his skin is a little darker and he looks thin, but his body is solid. I remember a time when I met in the corridor of the inn. I was walking unsteadily, I sprained my foot and fell to the boy. Lang, guess what, my dear? The first thought was not Lian Xianxia. I resisted the subconscious urge to punch, then turned sideways to dodge, watched me fall to the ground and finally asked, "Are you all right?" You concubine praised. Our hidden officials are really a decent gentleman. Saying so, the man is actually slandering in his heart. When he encounters such a plump beauty like a flower, it is not a problem whether he is blind or dizzy. Are you Chen Pin gone a fool? A total of 16 sword cultivators came from the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and now 9 are in Baiyujing, 6 are in Suishui Palace, and 1 is in Xuandu Temple in Qizhou. Among them, Chen Quan, the old swordsman of Yuan Yingjing who was the guardian of the Tao, was in the Suishu Palace, and the sword box wrapped in cotton was placed on the Xielong stone. On the bright side, there are 16 people, but in fact 17 sword cultivators came to this world. The real Taoist protector is naturally not only Qing Quan in the nascent soul realm. Now the old swordsman who is serving as the name of the Suishu Palace, Su Shitang, seems to have solved a certain knot. Not long ago he took the initiative to ask Suishu Palace for a private Taoist ultimatum and became a Taoist official. At the same time there was a young boy who obtained the private altar. It was Nailan Xiaowei, one of the 10 sword immortals at the peak of the Great Wall of Sword Qi. He used his real name on the sect's golden and jade genealogy. Old sword immortal reincarnated by virtue of the life-extending lamp hidden in the sword box. Sui Qugong was very sincere, and took out a rare fairy slew of Ascension Realm sword cultivator. These days Nailan Xiaowei, who looks like a Dao boy, often goes to Kukalu to find Gao Ping to play chess. In Nailan Xiaowei's own words, his chess skills are comparable and there are winners and losers. Chen Quan's speech has always been straightforward. If you think about it with your butt, you will know that you have never won once. Nailan Burning Reed doesn't bother to have the same knowledge as this guy who owes his mouth. Zhang Yunbo asked, "Is Yukushi Li talking to the palace master or playing chess with Gao Ping?" Nailan burned the reed and said, "Why do you need to go out to the horse? I will be responsible for entertaining the guests. It is not bad." Gao Ping is the Taoist official in charge of the Suizue Palace. He also has a title called Literature, and has 2 Taoist titles, Tai Hang and Zaish. When I became a chess friend and when Gao Ping was playing chess, he liked to ask Nailan Xiaowei about the details of the last battle at the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and he became familiar with him after going back and forth. General, the unpardonable sinner of the country's subjugation. Now that there is nothing to do, I just want to talk on paper. Nailan Burning Reed is also unwilling to get to the bottom of it. Regarding Haoran and Wuxia, the palace master Wu Shuangjiang, who seemed to know everything, revealed a lot of inside information to Nailan Xiaowei. Nailan Sihuan, this child, did well and became the suzerain of the Rain Dragon sect. Marquis Gaoye was the son-in-law of the Nailan family, and now he is the leader of Qingquan Mansion. As soon as she heard "going out of the horse," Yu Concubine began to think about it. She wanted to discuss with her whether he could ride a horse once tonight. He quietly raised his elbow and would like to tap the Taoist companion's head lightly. The arm, by accident, hit the mountain. As a result, Xie Chuntiao slapped him on the face with a slap in the face so that the man almost fell to the ground on the spot. Standing on the top of Zilongtai Mountain and looking at the Stork Tower on the shore, Pharmacist Li couldn't help sighing, "I want to go up the high building to avoid worry, but it turns out that the high place is full of sorrow, and I just wait for the customer to bring me downstairs." After successfully retiring, he died and became a spirit, subjected to incense sacrifices, and then entered Baiyujing Lingbao City to live in seclusion and escape from the world. In fact, Li Yaoshi has always maintained the state of the Yin and the gods traveling far away, and he has become a wandering Longzhong who walks the world, hanging pots to save the world and golden needles to save people. As a private dojo, the study room where the real body is located was named Yudao Room by Li Yaoshi. Not long ago, there was a female deputy city lord in Lingbao City who came to visit the Xianling Temple. The implication was that she hoped that Li Yaoshi would come out of the mountain and lead the Taoist officials in the 2 floors of the city. But Pharmacist Li only gave a prophecy-like answer: Taiping flowers meet begonia flowers. In fact, there are many heroic spirits like Li Yaoshi on the 12th floor of the 5 cities of Baiyujing, either explicit or hidden. As for the specific number, Pharmacist Li did not study it in detail, but thought it would be at least 300. At this moment, There are actually 3 masters and apprentices who came here earlier than Li Yaoshi and Zhou Xian. It's just that they are temporarily living in seclusion on the side of a mountain in a secret landscape. 2 of Balin's direct disciples, Lu Yi and Qiu Yi, have both met Kai Dao Huang now, especially the girl Jianxiu, and they like to ask this old gentleman about the marriage made in heaven. In addition to practicing swordsmanship, the teenagers who were not interested in these actually just watched her and Kai Dao Huang ask this question, and that the teenagers' eyes were all girls. Baolin has already learned that Gao Gu, who is named Jiyue, and the #1 alchemist in the world, has stepped down as the palace master of Huayang Palace and the mountain master of Difei Mountain at the same time. This in itself is a distant greeting between Huayang Palace and Suichou Palace. This means that the specific date of the question to Bai Yujing has not yet been determined, and Gao Gu will definitely go with her and Wu Shuangjiang. Since Wu Shuangjiang had personally promised he would personally instruct the cultivation of the 2 direct disciples. Hearing Xian knows Yai, no matter how stupid Baolin is, he will guess a certain truth. The next time they asked Bai Yujing together, she was determined to die and she planned to never return. The end result is sure to be the same. However, Wu Shuangjiang had left behind and was able to return to the Suiju Palace alive. As for how he did such a thing, Baolin was not interested in knowing. This is nothing. Baolin has nothing to be unhappy with. So best. Those of them who are good at playing chess, not all of them start the game and end the game. Secret State. It is located in the northernmost part of the Qingming world, with strong mountain transportation. The mountains in Izhou are stretched but not high. Only the Leaping Moon Peak stands alone and stands taller than thousands of mountains. There is a weak stream of water flowing through the foot of Runyue Peak. The moon stars are rare, and sitting on the top of this mountain, the monk seems to be able to pick off a bright moon by raising his hand. Lu Tai was lying drunk on the boulder with pillows in his hands and legs raised, sitting next to Yuan Ying, who wanted to sleep with him. Yuan Ying asked curiously, "Why do you have an extra title of deputy suzerain?" According to the previously agreed rows and rows to eat fruit, the husband Lu Tai, who has not yet come to the door, just replaces the hard work and serves as the chief worship. As a result, none of the state's Shanshui newspapers said that. Of course Yuan Ying doesn't mind this kind of thing, but Shi Xingyuan complains a little bit. She is not jealous of Lu Tai's many vain, prominent identities. For this reason, Shi Xingyuan left the hut and ran to find Lu Taixing to ask his guilt. The deputy suzerain, who was busy making ink molds at the time, raised his hands, put his fingers together and took turns to stab at the aggressive female crown, one by one, presumptuous and bold. "How can I talk to the deputy suzerain and the chief worshipper? I was almost beaten for being so inappropriate." In the end, Zhang Fenghai said something in the muddy words, "Shi Xingyun, if you want you can also be a deputy suzerain." Shi Xingyun was so angry that his face was frosty on the spot. He threw his sleeves, turned his head and left. A sect, such a child's play. At that time, Lu Tai looked at the back of the female crown and said sternly, "In order to help my sect become famous faster, what's the point of my personal grievance?" Such a fair, justifiable and well-founded statement could not convince Shi Xingyun, so angry that Lu Tai whistled with his fingers and tricked the Lu Chen into the house. Lu Tai stepped on the dog's tail again, squatted down, he stretched out his hand to hold the dog's head and said angrily, "Dog. The dog is a real dog. It's all your fault that you just eat and don't work every day and the dog can't spit out ivory." The hard work of concentrating on ink production couldn't help but say, "Get out." Lu Tai grabbed the dog by the neck and threw it out of the house. He said hard, "And you?" Lu Tai fell to the ground and rolled out of the house. Hard work with a black face. Zhang Fenghai smiled and said, "You can also let him roll back." The relationship within the sect is harmonious, and it is evident that they love each other. Tonight is clear, the pine wind has stopped, the southeast and northwest of the world, the mountain light suddenly falls and the weak water floats the white moon. Zhang Fenghai walked out of the dojo holding 2 pots of wine in his hand, first threw a pot to Lu Tai, and then a little toes, and his figure fell on the side of a cliff. Do not sit down, stand drinking, overlooking the scenery outside the mountains. Leaving the Xianxia cave of Xingyue Palace, Zhang Fenghai only did 2 things, one bright and one dark. Persuade Wu Fu to work hard and use Lipue Peak as the foundation of the sect. Now this is known all over the world. One more thing is to continue the previous avenue deduction in Xianxia cave. In the end, with the assistance and help of Lu Tai, Zhang Fenghai got a clearer and more conclusive answer. Previously, Zhang Fenghai could only figure out a sentence on top of that long clay slab, with a rather vague meaning. The Taoist mourning for 300 years has led to this monarch. As a result, 2 words were changed. 3 changes to 5. This changes Qin. It is a sentence. 500 years of Taoist mourning is to get Qin Jun. Different from the previous text arrangement, this time Zhang Fenghai came up with a 9-character prophecy, making a circle like a palindrome inscribed on the jade bracelet. After seeing this prophecy at that time, Lu Tai pretended to be surprised and jumped in a hurry. He was like ants on a hot pot in the house, and his mouth was broken, saying that it was my friend, and this matter must not be let by Yujing. No, sect Master Zhang, this little one will kowtow to you. However, both parties in the house knew very well that the so-called 500 years of Taoist mourning will get Qin Jun. In fact, the name of the great headmaster of Bai Yujing. Li Zhu Dongtun, the Li family on Fulu Street, the Kai Shu at the tomb. The housewife is partial to the second son. A certain family custom. The woman once heard every peach and vulgar plum, and was not angry. She returned the happy money, but when she listened to it she was not angry. When Li Dai Taozong was actually angry. The eldest son Li Shixing, his younger siblings were named Li Baozhen and Li Baoping. In Beiju Luzhou, a small remote country called Qinghaguo, a place called Dongxian Street in a certain state city, Li Shixing once settled here, and there is a scholar in the neighborhood named Qin Baozhou. Turning his head and glancing at Zhang Fenghai, who was standing drinking, Lu Tai teased, "Sect master, if you stick around like this, of course Yushu Linfeng belongs to Yushu Linfeng, but who are you just putting it on for someone to see?" Zhang Fenghai turned a deaf ear. Lu Tai had to admit that among the geniuses of Taoism, there were also greats, and Zhang Fenghai belonged to the top genius. Lu Tai had never seen a person with such good aptitude in his life. Zhang Fenghai asked, "It may be 300 years or 500 years. Suppose that the great headmaster will wait for so many years to clean up the mountains and rivers. Before that, was the world in such chaos?" Lu Tai gloated and said, "Now I finally know the embarrassment of the fortune-teller Taoist priest. After going around, I can't get around. A destiny is like this. Where should I be?" Zhang Fenghai was silent. Lu Tai sat up, took a sip of wine and slapped his lips. It was indeed a good wine. Yuan Ying seemed greedy and said, "Give me a drink too." Lu Tai glared and reprimanded, "I have never seen a person who is lecherous and virtuous. In fact, Yuan Ying's qualifications are also good, but she is too tired and lazy, a girl from a family all day long thinking about the bridal room's flower candle at night and spring supper is worth $1,000. What kind of decency?" Yuan Ying snorted. Lu Tai said casually, "In the wild world there are also a few powerful people. Sect Master Zhang, when will we be able to meet a few of them for a while?" Zhang Fenghai said, "Before I have to go further, unless there are 5 ascension realms, we can dare to say that there is no big accident in traveling together in the wild." Lu Tai sighed, "Then you work hard with hard work." Yuaning laughed. Zhang Fenghai knew the powerful characters that Lu Tai mentioned. Fei Ran, Shou Qin, Zhou Qinggao. They are all the hottest big names in the wild world today. The 2 sword cultivators of the Ascension realm who had not broken the realm for a few days had the highest status as the co-lords of the wild, but they were still the prestige ministers on the mountain and down the mountain. As for Zhou Qinggao, whose original name was Clogs, it was more because he was a close disciple of Wenhai Zhoumi, and he was also a right-hand man who was inseparable from Fei Ran all year round, so he often made public appearances and was well known on the wild mountains. In fact, Zhou Qinggao's fortune was still underestimated. Zhou Mi's direct disciple, who was named by himself and the young leader of Jiashan's account in the past, was not a common sight. Today Zhou Qinggao's young god's body is from Zhou Mi's personal refining of the remains of Bai Ying, the great demon of the old throne. In addition, there are 2 remains of Huang Wan and Qi Yun, all of which are embedded with Zhou Qinggao's soul and spirit. This is not enough. Zhou Mi specially left a tailor-made immortal art for this disciple. How did the master ascend to the sky from the Lujin realm in 1 step? And the disciple followed the steps and entered the Jade realm directly. In less than 10 years, Zhou Qinggao was in a fairyland. How many steps did this jump? Not to mention that Zhou Mi has left a considerable part of the secret book collection to this closed disciple who likes to read. Obviously, give Zhou Qing a few more years of cultivation, such as 300 or 500 years. It is very likely that he with complex techniques is Lu Qi in the wild world. Given a few more years, Zhou Xian's High Avenue's achievement height is only higher than Lu Qi's, at least it's on the same level. For example, both are in the 14th realm. As the sword fairy of Zhou Qinggeo's senior brother, he was given 3 swords of the rank of immortal soldiers by the master. It was his senior sister Lu Bai, who only got 1 immortal soldier and 1 half-immortal soldier, a robe called Little Dong Tian, and a matching emerald hibiscus crown. Lu Tai held the jug in one hand, patted his knee lightly with the other, and sang a poem repeatedly in the local accent, Li Liuan on the grass, 1 year old and 1 prosperous. In the dark night, the ancient battlefield site Zhuolu Dijia, a small Taoist temple called Jinhua Temple, is located on the edge of Hulu town. Zhuolu couldn't sleep. Since he couldn't sleep, he simply walked out of the guest room and took a walk in the courtyard, only to find that Lu Chen was squatting on the steps and reading a book by the moonlight. As soon as he saw Bai Yujing's headmaster, Zhu Lu was in a complicated mood. Lu Chen, who used to be a Taoist priest here, was an old story about 100 years ago. Since Taoist temples are private jungles, there is a reason for not being famous. That is, there are no masters in the temple and the previous temple master is just a cave state that has been hard-boiled. This time when he returned to the Taoist temple, Lu Chen knocked on the door and started talking nonsense. What small path is not talented? His ancestral home is Tsun, the Taoist name is Sanmu, and he has wandered here with his friends. Thanks. No matter how small the Taoist temple is, there is no problem with being eaten a few times. As a result, Lu Chen, who was staying at the Taoist temple that day, brought Zhu Lu to the Zhaitong. Zhu Lu noticed something was wrong, and when Lu Chen went to the dining table, he just lowered his head and grabbed the rice. When questioned, he resolutely did not raise his head. Even so, Lu Chen was still recognized by the current abbot Taoist priest, and he started yelling as soon as he slapped the table. The old Taoist priest didn't care about his identity and etiquette. A group of Taoist priests were pulling, and the old Taoist priest with all white beard and white beard might have to fight with this self-knowledgeable Taoist priest. The Taoist temple was originally poor. The Taoist priest Lu, who served as an acquaintance in the past, was accustomed to spending a lot of money. If this is the case, the Taoist temple will endure it. The problem is that on the day when Lu Qi left his post as Shika, taking advantage of the dark and windy moon, he softened the gold accumulated by the Guanzhou and the 3 capitals and 5 masters and a large group of old guys. An Kong, the Taoist priest who did such a depraved deed, actually wrote on the wall of the hall before leaving, "There is no place for the master here." And the first person to see this remark back then was the current spectator, who was still a scavenger at the time. In fact, the relationship between Dao Tong and Zhika Luqi was still very good. Children used to like to listen to Lu Zix's bragging and not writing drafts. From a child to an old Taoist spectator, I never thought that this fellow would have the face to cheat, eat, drink, and he would not be willing to settle accounts with new and old hatred. After all, the visitor is a guest and it is not good to beat people, but on the one hand, Lao Guanzhou asked the Taoist priest to be careful, don't let up on the night patrol, and then let the current acquaintances grow snacks. Even if the charcoal in the house is used up, don't add lamp oil. I told the surnamed Lu Zhaitong not to go there. Guani I will deliver meals to the house alone, and the steamed buns will be porridge. That's why Lu Chen read a book tonight, so he could read so bitterly. There is a high mountain near the Taoist temple. A monk in purple who was passing by stopped here, glanced at the small Taoist temple and snorted, obviously very surprised. He took a step and went straight to the door of the Taoist temple. He knocked on the door lightly, and there was a lingering sound that echoed in a certain courtyard of the Taoist temple. Cut the spirits to make the 4 poles positive, and rub the lusts and all things are born. Zhu Lu walked in the courtyard to practice boxing, and when he heard the sound he turned his head to look at Lu Chen. Lu Chen put away the book, coughed a few times, thought for a moment and answered. Join hands to cook bamboo temple, but step on Lotus Island. Zhu Lu was at a loss. Is this the secret words of Master Lu and the masters outside the world? Lu Chen lowered his voice and said, I'm talking nonsense. If you lose, you won't lose. You have to be imposing. Zhu Lu really believed that this sentence was the truth. Lu Chen said, the monk outside the door knocked on the door under the moon, and his pseudonym is Jiang Xiao. Zhu Lu was shocked. Is it really him? The latest list of 10 candidates in the world. Although the number is a bit large, there are 21 people, but the only one who has been identified as the 11th in the world by the list is the monk Jiang Xiao. The remaining 20 people are ranked regardless. Lu Chen nodded. The identity of the poor Daoist is left here, and naturally there is no low hand in daily communication. In the past, this Taoist temple did not understand the good intentions of the poor Daoist, and always felt that those ascension realms came here to eat. A liar in the rivers and lakes, you can aggrieve the Taoist and acquaintance of Pindao to death. Zhu Lu took a deep breath and was ready to meet the master. Lu Chen smiled and said, I ran. Oh no, I left. Almost got a sword. Lu Chen tilted his head and posed as if he was listening. After a while he stomped his feet and called the spectator by his first name and then said loudly, How do you treat guests? Poor Taoism is good for Taoist temples, you need to drink and eat meat. Zhu Lu raised his hand to rest on his forehead and made up his mind that she would never travel around with Lu Xian again. Bingzhou Qingshan Dynasty. Yao Qing returned from the Great Chao sect in Yinzhou and found that the white lotus root was in the mansion, and his expression was gloomy. Yao Qing pretended not to know the inside story and asked with a smile, What's wrong? Bai O explained, the Bixiao cave master brought a strange sword cultivator named Stranger not long ago. Now they are in the capital and the latter is teaching Fu Xuanjia swordsmanship. Yao Qing said, This is a good thing, why should the national teacher have a bitter face? White Lotus is getting more and more depressed. Yao Qing couldn't help laughing and comforted, Okay, didn't it just be reprimanded by Senior Bai Shao? What a big deal, you are already a national teacher, so be more open-minded. Bai O was so aggrieved, how could it be so simple? Before the two sides met, she just asked a few more questions. The stinky old man, in addition to persuading her not to meddle in her own business, even scolded you. Yao Qing smiled and said, Senior Bai Shao is not scolded by everyone. Ordinary Taoist priests don't have this kind of treatment. Bai O glanced at Yao Qing, who was also a teacher and father. The other party smiled and put his finger to his mouth, indicating that Bai O should talk less. The senior was listening. Ruzhou Nanshan Country, Tongxi County, Lingjing View. A resident Taoist named Qin Tsong. The teenager likes to squat at the entrance of Taoist temple to watch the scenery. There are 2 rows of luxuriant old locust trees beside the road. Azalea blooms like fire in spring. On a summer night, the moonlight sprinkled on the mountain road was as bright as frost in winter. Outside the mountain, there is a persimmon forest belonging to one's own Taoist temple. In the warm sunshine in winter, whenever there is a mountain wind passing the Taoist temple, blowing over the locust trees, it rustles like a rain. Sort of coming. Chapter 1197. Chapter 1197. Some cultivators like to hide in peace and some like to join in the fun. Beidasheng Lu Daochun belongs to the latter. What's more, Lu Daochun is a lively person. After all, there are not many Qi trainers who can be as famous as Gu Qingsong in the Haoran world. He was once suppressed by the great celestial master of Longhu Mountain in person, and finally stopped for more than 1,000 years. Lu Daochun changed his name to Lu Qiqing since he exited the customs. Seems that he has grown a lot, it seems. This time, Lu Qiqing first took a cross-continental ferry to the northernmost point of Aquarius Island, and then transferred to a Changchun Palace ferry to go south, where he would disembark at Nujiadu and take a trip to Luopao Mountain. Today Lu Qiqing left the house and came to the bow of the boat, leaning on the railing, pretending not to hear those whispers. There are restaurants and restaurants on the ferry. Lu Qiqing often shows up and is used to it. As the owner of Lioli Pavilion and the younger brother of the city owner of Baidi City, Lu Qiqing, who was previously abiding by his brother's law, devoted his best efforts to assist his nephew Fu Xing to choose the site together to create the next sect. Because the entire Baidi city was divided into 2 by the seniors, and the property that went to the younger disciple Gukan was obviously far less than the elder disciple's Fu Yu, Lu Qiqing was of course happy to see it happen. He doesn't think that his upper sect is strong and his family is strong. Gu Kan's sect can only be regarded as the lower sect of the ancestral family authentic Beidasheng, so the face is all in him and his nephew. The silent superior is here. This time he took a break from his busy schedule, returned to Aquarius and revisited the old place with mixed feelings. Once in a deserted temple I was stabbed by someone. Later there was a little conflict with a scholar surnamed Li from Lizhu Cave in the Su family's Fox Kingdom in Qingfeng City. Nothing, just don't know each other. Senior brother still takes care of himself very much, and chooses to let senior sister Han Ko's assist Gu Kan. If he is to follow Gu Kan's side, Lu Qiqing will pretend to be dead. Senior brother, you can just empty the entire White Emperor city and drive out all the cultivators and the other people. But as long as the Liuli Pavilion is still in the White Emperor City, I am here and honestly continue to accompany you to practice together. That's it. Lu Qiqing, who is now wearing a pink Taoist robe, is simply flamboyant and doesn't mind being recognized at all. Because senior sister Han Qiaosa leaked a big inside story to him not long ago. A secret letter, just 3 words. Brother 3. At that time Lu Qiqing was holding the secret letter, trembling all over and tears welling up in his eyes. He was happier than he had broken through and ascended one after another. Lu Qiqing, who originally felt that his current state was not very good, felt that I was very good. Heaven and earth are big, where can't you go? Not to mention the 9 continents, the Western Buddhist country, the 14 states of the Qingming world, all of them can go. Little treasure island, what can I do? Back then when I took 2 disciples here, Lu Qiqing almost forgot all these years. On this trip to Aquarius, Lu Qiqing mainly wanted to catch up with his brother Chen Pingon. Last time in the Baozhai opened by Zhang Ji in Parrot Island, Master Chen Shan had no cash at hand, so he and Mrs. Yen Yen borrowed some Immortal money. The money was not much, but the brothers clearly settled the account, so this visit, if your kid misunderstands me as a debt collector, then Chen Pingon thinks so. On the previous cross-continental ferry, Lu Qiqing met a few new friends on the road, and they agreed to change the boat to visit the old site of Lizhu Cave. The reason why Lu Qiqing left the house was because, according to the records in the booklet, there was a sea of clouds in front of him, which was condensed all the year round, and the ferry from the mountains sailed into it to ask for a good omen. A group of male and female monks came to Pavilion Master Lu one after another. All the stars held the moon willing to be green leaves, a jade pure realm and several earth immortals. They were all well-known qi practitioners in their respective hometowns in Middle Earth and Shenzhou. Gu Panzixiong chatting and laughing. Among the crowd, of course, Lu Qiqing, who was dressed in pink, was the most eye-catching. After chatting and talking, apart from the fact that the Confucian temple was sealed as Yueshenzhen, the young hidden officials and Luopao Mountain must not be avoided. In Lu Qiqing's words, whenever he mentioned Chen Pingon, he always had a light and calm expression and he had a homely tone. I remember when we first met, Chen Shanju had just left his hometown. Although he carried the sword, he had not practiced the sword at that time. Chen Pingon was not good at words at that time and was rather dull, but I had long seen that his achievements in the future would be extraordinary, and he often invited him to drink. At that time, Chen Pingon, who was still a boy with straw sandals, often drank my mountain wine while listening to me talk about the legend of the mountain, and he was fascinated by it. It can be said that the group of Middle-earth monks is like listening to the scriptures. Because they really can't imagine that the last hidden official of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, the close disciple of Wenxing's lineage, actually had a bleak time like being a follower and drinking wine. On this ferry, there was a middle-aged man in a cotton-padded jacket and an old mink hat. He was tall and dull-looking. He was inconspicuous in the market, but here he was similar to Lu Qiqing. However, compared to the Xianxia ferry, which is a mixed bag of fish and dragons, the ferry on the mountain is like a sieve, sifting out many crooks who hope to hit luck in the heap of gods. After all, if you want to take the ferry, you have to give some real money. Like Daoist Xianwei, the current gatekeeper of Luopao Mountain, he was screened out. Occasionally, when crossing the road, he just watched the ups and downs of the ferry and learned a lot. So this man on this Changchun Palace ferry, even if he was poor and sour, didn't dare to provoke him. It was the contemporary head of the Luo Mahe family, Lu Su, the Yuaning Jingjianxiu. The last time I had a drink with Chen Pingon in the capital, Yuan Xian had already returned to Luzhou in Beiju, and Lu Su wanted to go to Fuss House in the old Longqing, so he continued south by himself. Originally, he didn't plan to make a special trip to Luopao Mountain, but Yuan Xian sent a secret letter to Lu Su on the way back, saying that the family had just confirmed something, a big happy event. Yuan Yizhu did not do anything without any warning, and she was already free from the harassment of the nightmare overnight. The nightmare that had plagued her for 100 years seemed to disappear in an instant. There is no need for Yuan Shi to ask an expert to investigate this matter, because after Yuan Yichu slept in an extremely sweet dreamless sleep, the bottleneck of the nascent soul realm was loosened, and she had already begun to officially retreat. In the letter, Yuan Xian asked Lu Su to tell Shan Juchen that no matter whether Yuan Yi's retreat was successful or not, the Sanlang Temple must be very grateful in the near future. So Lu Su planned to go to Luopao Mountain to help bring the words to him. As for the in the pink robe, Lu Su recognized the identity of the other party at a glance. and the latter was surrounded by a bunch of people holding stinky feet, and there was no taboo to speak. Lu Su felt that he was not a commoner. Lu Su was not sure whether Lu Qiqing's words were true or false, so he planned to see Qin Pingon and ask again. To be honest, Lu Su felt that if Qin Pingon really knew such a friend and was a good friend, then pretty crappy. A ferry sailed into the white clouds. The so-called Xianxia scenic spot, the drunkard passed by after a few sips. Afterwards, Lu Qiqing and the others saw the man in the padded jacket again at the ferry restaurant. He was still drinking alone. It didn't matter if someone put together a table. There was a beautiful female nun who had a unique vision. She felt that this man might be a big fish. Sitting at the table with the jug in hand, Lu Su drank a bowl of wine, took out 2 snows from his sleeves to spend money, and reported the name of the wooden sign hanging in the ferry house, saying that he just had some spare money. The female cultivator was stunned and angry when she heard the words. She picked up the wine bowl and poured it over. Lu Su just lowered her head to avoid the wine, and she had already got up and left. In fact, if you really think about it, it's not Lu Zu's incomprehension of style and abrupt beauty, but the room he lives in. It's the cheapest kind of house on this ferry, and there are several people living there. Lu Qiqing thought it was interesting, so he raised the wine bowl and said hello from a distance. Lu Su didn't look at him, just drinking for himself. Lu Qiqing didn't take it seriously, he still had some energy. At noon that day, the ferry finally approached Piyun Mountain. The last time I went with Gu Ken to Huaihuang County, Lu Qiqing didn't dare to stroll around because the water was too deep. Now looking at the outline of the town surrounded by clouds and fog, I don't think it's too big, a palm-sized sight. The ferry slowly docked at Nujiadu and it was firmly anchored after a few bumps. Lu Qiqing walked to the deck of the building and stretched. In the flow of people, Lu Su rubbed his old mink hat, put his hands in his sleeves, and walked with his shoulders slightly sideways against the railing to make way for others. At this moment, the entire Nujiadu just disembarked and those who were about to board began to turn their heads to look at the same place. A transcontinental ferry, which can be called a behemoth, came galloping from the size of a mustard seed to the size of a bowl, and in a flash it approached the sky above the old Lizhu cave. Feng Yuan Cross-Continental Ferry. A Niujiao ferry was wrapped by a huge ferry, and the clouds and mists swelled, the mountain wind burst, and the heaven and earth aura swayed. On the bow railing of Feng Yuan ferry, stood a boy in white with a mole between his eyebrows, holding the back of his head with both hands, and his 2 snow-white sleeves fell naturally. Lu Su narrowed his eyes, but he was looking at a higher place on Feng Yuan ferry. The boy in white shook his sleeves and snapped his fingers. The next moment, the entire ferry that was originally dazzled by the sun was plunged into darkness, and a ferry larger than Feng Yuan ferry removed its blindfolds, and appeared on Nujiadu like a mountain topping down. This ferry stood tall with a large pole with Qingping Jianzong written on the front and Bingding written on the reverse. Sword boat. Turned out to be a legendary Dali sword boat. The Dali dynasty once teamed up with the Mahis to create 2 battlefield weapons that can be called the treasure of the country. One is a mountain ferry that can carry tens of thousands of Dali cavalry. At the end of the curtain, only 46 sword boats were seen. Each sword boat is named after one of the 60 jiazi. After the Battle of Lialongqing in the north, until Dali Paidu and Dadu battlefields, according to the outside world, more than 30 sword boats crashed successively. In the large-scale battle of Jianzhou dispatched more than 50 ships at the same time. As for the high cost of each ferry, the outside world simply cannot estimate it. Just talking about one thing, you will know how expensive each Dali sword boat is. Every military armor in the world is a precious treasure on the mountain, and a sword boat is like a chi trainer, just like wearing a pair of the robe generated by the soldier Kamru. As for how the money came, they are all from Aquarius. From the imperial study of the Dali dynasty, from the treasury to all the surnames of Shangzhou Manchu civil and military, to the sects on the mountain, the dignitaries under the mountain and the mountains and rivers of one continent. Screaming, complaining, never had. At that time the Dali dynasty, which was one country and one continent, at least not on the bright side just because the national teacher was Tuiyu. Those who fled or migrated to other continents, the Xianfu sects and the super rich, the Dali dynasty did not stop them, such as the fat man who lost a lot of weight and spit out a lot. When the dust settled, this group of people also quietly returned to Aquarius, but secretly lost some weight. Just talking about the countries south of Dadu, why are they so noisy? This group of people who are unwilling to spend money, a lot of fuel. Lu Qiqing saw over the ferry boat. Beside the boy in white, there was a woman with a narrow knife hanging from the waist and a silver wine gourd in red, Li Baoping. She has an eldest brother named Li Shixing, and the scholar seems to say that he wants to play chess with his senior brother. On the ferry side there is also Zhou Xian, a burly figure, a young man in a mink hat with delicate eyebrows. Lu Qiqing heard an anecdote mentioned by his senior sister Xianxia, and thought it was funny at the time. White also. And standing beside Zhou Xian, there is Qin Pingan's first disciple Pei Qian, a martial artist, and next to Pei Qian, there is a short old man wearing a purple Taoist robe, Fu Lu Yuxian. Li Huai and Lu Qiqing also recognized it. The old blind man from Shirwanda Mountain is a disciple who both opens and closes the door. I heard from my senior sister that the old blind man begged this person to be his apprentice. What's more, the fox beside the young man in the Confucian shirt remembered the Xialong Tai in the sea back then, and Lu Qiqing even remembered that she was with a soft and weak woman who called her brother by her first name. Lu Qiqing swallowed and tugged at the neckline of the pink Taoist robe. Fortunately Qin Yingguan and I are close friends who are irresistible. Coincidentally, at this moment, a blushing earth immortal cultivator asked, Pavilion Lu, when will we go to Luopao Mountain to find Master Qin Shan for a drink? Can we really drink Qingshan mountain wine? The boy in white smiled and looked at Lu Qiqing, Zhou Xian and Bai Yi, and they also started to look at Lu Qiqing, especially the one named Pei Qian who started squinting at Pavilion Master Lu. By the water of Qiuqi Lake, Qin Pingan and Yuan Huang borrowed a fishing rod and some lees and corn. Zhou Xian, who was long in coming, accidentally caught a glimpse of the figure in green shirt by the lake, with a long stature, rushed to the lake and squatted, wondering, Qin Shan, why didn't you go to Demugwan but instead did you catch any fish here? Qin Pingan smiled and said, Go later so as not to get in the way there. Zhou Xian nodded and said, That's the truth. Zhou Xian was too lazy to use the martial arts method that focused on the sound. This golden-bodied martial artist is recognized as the #1 martial artist in the world. Just because he is young and not a chi refiner, he is not as famous as Gao Jun of the Hushan school. But don't look at Wu Kei at the Hostel Island Wine Bureau. Let the old guy talk about it in front of Zhou Qian. Zhou Qian has a good temper, but in this matter it is best to keep your mouth shut. Before Zhou Qian entered the 7th realm, almost all of her actions were because the opponent's mouth was not clean. Zhou Qian asked, Didn't Mr. Zhu come with you? Qin Pingan smiled and said, Zong sure, you can. Do you want to take a cook by your side to travel around the mountains and water? Zhou Qian grinned. I've eaten Mr. Zhu's food and my mouth has been raised and now I don't eat anything. Yuan Huang couldn't help turning his head to look at Zhou Qian. The goddess of the beggar field, the goddess of the mountain has a look and the other 2 talismans must be bought? Zhou Qian glanced at the young man sitting on the ground with a knife beside him and asked, Who are you? Wu Jiang said concisely, Wu Jiang, swordsman. Zhou Qian nodded and said, Young and promising, I have heard the name for a long time. Practice the sword well and strive to be the first. Wu Jiang frowned. It's easy to say. For the sake of being Qin Xianxian's friend, I don't care about you. It seems that the warrior has reached the first floor of the golden body, holding his breath for a while, and seeing the living creatures between heaven and earth is a new thing, and he can vaguely see the route of some breaths. Yuan Huang asked, Are you Zhou Qian? Zhou Qian answered nonsense and gave a thumbs up. I know you, your name is Yuan Huang. Renxia is full of zeal and greed, just like the characters written in ancient books. Yuan Huang smiled and said, I don't dare to do it. Qin Pingan helped introduce. The one next to me is the goddess of the mountain from the begging flower field in Dai Mountain. She smiled and said, My real name is Yuan Jetsao with a small green waist. Zhou Qian said solemnly, I haven't heard of it before. As long as I pass by in the future, I will definitely go to your mountain temple to worship incense. The mountain goddess smiled and nodded softly. It's easy to say. In the end, Zhou Qian is in love, the shadow of the famous tree of people, and the name of the #1 in the world of martial arts today. It is not a joke. The mixed tourists on the shore of Qiuqi Lake came here one after another. Some came to chat a few words and some held their fists and signed up. After coming and going, Zhou Qian was surrounded by a lot of people, both warriors and chi refiners, and they were all prominent figures on the mountains and rivers and lakes. It's not easy to pull his face down and chase people away. Zhou Qian glanced at Shanju Qin carefully. Qin Pingan smiled and nodded, indicating that it doesn't matter. The chat was in full swing. During the period, the green-shirt fisherman interjected a few words, but no one answered and continued to talk about each other. Zhou Xian felt a little nervous, but he was not afraid that Qin Pingon would get angry. But if this kind of thing goes around and is heard by Xiaoli, then at the dinner table in Luopa Mountain he will not be ridiculed for using the moon as a meal and a side dish? So that Qin Lingjun can spare him? And that white-haired boy who seems to be some kind of pedigree officer, who just didn't engrave, "I am a dog-legged dogleg in the sky," on his forehead, can he let him go? Qin Pingon turned his head and said with a smile, "Isn't this Zhou Xian? Why did you come here?" A man in a padded jacket came by the river like a ghost, quietly approached here. Lu Su squatted aside with a dark face and said, "Yuan Yizhu has solved the trouble. Yuan Xian asked me to thank you, and the Sanlang Temple promises that there will be a reward." Qin Pingon wondered, "What's the matter? I didn't do anything." Lu Su said indifferently, "I don't know, anyway Yuan Yizhu has started to retreat, and it seems that he has a good grasp of it." Qin Pingon thought for a while and roughly guessed that it was Lu Chen's handwriting, but Qin Shanju knew with his knees that Headmaster Lu must be holding back, and he didn't know when, where, and who would make trouble. Lu Su asked, "You know Lu Qiqing very well?" Qin Pingon nodded. "I've known each other for a long time, really familiar." Lu Su shook his head. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Is he on the mountain now?" Lu Su nodded. "I was on the same ferry earlier, and when I came here I was in high spirits. This guy almost didn't tell people that he was your boxing and swordsman master when you were young, but when you got to Nujiadu, you were scared and stupid." Qin Pingon said, "It's his style." Because the two sides chatted, they didn't use the means of concentrating their voices or speaking from their hearts, so it's fine for some people who have a heart to hear them. The Sanlang Temple, Yuan Yizhu and Lu Qiqing's are all dojos that have never been heard of. And characters. As for the person whose surname is Lu or Lu, is it Zhou Xian? Lu Su asked in his heart. "I heard that the highest realm in this blessed land is the Golden Core? Stopping martial arts, playing a Golden Core is not the same as playing one-handed against the enemy, all worried that the shot will not be able to master the strength." Qin Pingon nodded. "She is not at a high level for the time being, and her achievements in the future should not be underestimated." Lu Su hesitated for a moment but still said, "Don't be too soft-hearted." Qin Pingon restrained his smile and nodded vigorously. Lu Su said angrily, "Damn it, what if I didn't enter the summer palace? My friend's suggestion, I would like to hear it." Qin Pingon shook his fists and said, "Listen, why don't you listen? You must listen." Lu Su said, "I finished my business in Beipingzu and I may take a detour to Fiazu first. Is there anything I need to tell you?" Qin Pingon nodded and said, "Let the Scrofularia and the others be withdrawn, and then thank me again and remember to remind me not to bring gifts when I come to Luopa Mountain next time." Lu Su was speechless for a moment. After a moment of silence he got up and said, "It's too lively on your mountain. I'm not used to it, so I won't stay." Qin Pingon didn't hold back. "When you arrive at the old dragon city, you can ask Fan Air for a drink." Lu Su glanced at Qin Pingon with distrust on his face. Qin Pingon laughed angrily. "I personally introduced it to Lu Xixian's friend. Can he be the same as Lu Sabao?" Lu Su nodded. "It's the best, it's enough to cheat Lu Jinglong. Next time you come to my house, remember to ask me for a drink." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Okay, yes, definitely, drinking wedding wine is the best. The last time I heard Yuan Xian say that now Beiju Luzhou is going to marry his daughter and disciple to the family and immortal mansion of Lu Jiangxian, Luomahi River and countless others." Lu Su laughed, kicked a big pebble beside his feet into the lake and left. Qin Pingon scolded, "Lu Xian, why do you owe so much? If you say it lightly, you don't know what to do. If you say the point, you are called ungrateful. Without me, no one would know that you are so talented." Lu Su turned his back to the Yinyang second shopkeeper, raised his arm and raised a finger. Zhou Xian gathered together and asked, "Master Qin Shan, who is this?" Qin Pingon laughed heartily. "The old customer at the Jianqi Great Wall wine shop, surnamed Lu, is Beiju Luzhou Jianxiu. In fact, he is very rich, but he spends money very cheaply." Zhou Qian turned to look at Lu Su, nodded and said, "I can tell." Qin Pingon wondered, "Did you see that he was rich or did you see that he was kusu?" Zhou Qian said, "I have money." Qin Pingon asked curiously, "How do you see it?" At the wine shop back then, only at first glance, Qin Pingon didn't really see that Lu Su was the young master of Luomahi. In fact, if it wasn't for the identity of the wine shop guests, he would have always regarded Lu Su as a pig killer. Too fast to be a pauper. Zhou Xian said, "It's not like the old saying, poverty is the prosperity of the scholar, and frugality is the harvest of the farmer. This Lu Jianxian wears an old mink hat that is so worn that he is not willing to lose it. At first glance he is both poor and frugal. It's not about being rich." Qin Pingon snorted, "Master Zhong, it's all right, I didn't realize you were so good at talking before. Why don't you talk too much on the mountain? No wonder it was so fun to stay in Luopao Mountain." Zhong Qian said, "On our mountain I don't go out very often. Every time I get to the dinner table it's too late to eat and drink. What are we talking about?" Qin Pingon laughed angrily, "You're shameless, what are we on the mountain? You're just a guest for the time being." Zhong Qian snorted, "Xianxia, we are familiar with each other and I admire you, but I really don't like to hear these words. Why are you an outsider? I am in the house that has belonged to me. I have prepared a few tubs of winter pickles, fermented bean curd and stinky mandarin fish." Qin Pingon suddenly scolded a sissy. Zhong Qian smiled, "I'm not angry." As a result, Qin Pingon cursed again. Zhong Qian still had a face full of indifference. Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Don't care about this in the future, you can care about punching, don't be soft on hitting people, but don't take it seriously in your heart." Zhong Qian hummed. After a moment of silence, Zhong Qian said softly, "Master Qin Shan, if I were a woman." "Stop." Qin Pingon suddenly got goosebumps, and was so frightened that he almost lost his fishing rod and ran away. Zhong Qian laughed and said, "Master Qin Shan, your reasoning is so unreasonable." Qin Pingon rubbed his chin and seemed to be thinking about a problem. Now it was Zhong Qian's turn to panic, so she hurriedly clarified, "Qin Shan, it's a joke, don't take it seriously. I've drunk flower wine and visited brothels, and there are more than one or two confidants in the world. One, if it wasn't for the turmoil back then, I had to run for my life. I would have been married a long time ago. If you don't believe me, I can take you to meet them. It is no exaggeration. They are all first class and good-looking. She's beautiful with big breasts." Qin Pingon regained his senses and smiled. "It's okay, just now I was a little distracted. Back then in the wine shop your jokes were just drizzle." A graceful man came to the shore, smiled and clasped his fists and said, "I have seen Mr. Qin. The Supreme Emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, the Qi refiner of the Dragon Gate realm, Wei Liang." Next to him was a girl in a dragon robe who settled on Luodai Island. Qin Pingon smiled and nodded, "Long time no see." Wei Liang said in his heart, "Jiang Shenxi, who is a ghost, has been trying to find revenge with Mr. Qin all these years." Qin Pingon said, "Is that the scholar from Zhuangyun Lane who went to Beijing to take the exam?" Wei Liang nodded and said, "It seems that I am overthinking it." The girl in the dragon robe's eyes sparkled and she asked, "Are you the Qin Jianxian who made a lot of trouble in the capital of Nanyuan Kingdom and killed Ding Ying at the head of the city? Don't you all say that people who have attained Taoism on the mountain can keep their faces and have skills, and Eugenie of the Hushan school can even be rejuvenated? The former young sword fairy in front of me, what's going on, has a slight frost on the temples, and it's a shame that his face is not visible." Qin Ping was placed on deaf ears. She blinked. "Hey, why are you pretending to be deaf and dumb?" Wei Liang reprimanded with a straight face, "Don't be rude." She pouted. "What's so amazing? You Wei Liang is the Supreme Emperor of Nanyuan Country. This man in blue shirt is nothing more than the Supreme Emperor of this world." Zhong Qian glanced at Wei Liang, who seemed to have a dragon-like figure coiling around his shoulders, and the girl in a dragon robe who was said to be a four-legged snake in the mountains, an eel worshipping the moon in the field, and a green snake in the lake who was unknown. Zhong Qian can now be sure that her real body is a successfully refined green snake. In fact, Zhong Qian's eyesight has little to do with becoming a martial artist in the golden body, but has something to do with his natural ability to look at the breath. The girl in the dragon robe pretended to be surprised and gave a wow. Zhong Qian, the great grandmaster of Zhong, is the #1 mile in the world. He has long admired the famous name like thunder. Zhong Qian smiled and said, "You're welcome, the little girl calls me a sissy." The girl in the dragon robe covered her heart and said with a smile, "What a murderous aura." Wu Jiang strained his face. If it wasn't for hearing that this little girl is a Daoist who is proficient in water law, and her realm is not much lower than that of the Hushan school Gao Jun, Wu Jiang would have stood up and spoken. Qin Pingon always held the pole facing the lake and said with a smile, Wei Liang, you brought the people so you don't care about her? Wei Liang clenched his fists and apologized. She is rebellious by nature and I neglected to discipline her. Qin Pingon snorted. Wei Liang explained, she's used to speaking casually and I will definitely restrain her when she goes back. The implication is that in the public eye Mr. Qin sold me some thin noodles. Qin Pingon smiled and said, I know my identity clearly but I still have such eyes in the sky, and I can imagine how rebellious I am in private. Still the same after all these years, Wei Liang, it seems that you say such things. It's hard to believe. Wei Liang's face suddenly became difficult to look at. The girl in the dragon robe narrowed her long and narrow eyes and she just said a few words. This Qin Zhenxian, who is said to be God, is going to fight and kill? Qin Pingon suddenly raised the rod, and a fishing line made a sound of breaking through the air, instantly wrapping the neck of the girl in the dragon robe, and throwing the rod again, the latter beaten into the nest. The girl in the dragon robe slammed heavily on the lake that looked like frozen ice and fainted on the spot. Qin Pingon smiled and said, I failed to compete for Gao Jun. The first one to form a pill is to blame others in private. How dare you have the face to blame me? Wei Liang, did Luopa Mountain give you a face? Wei Liang was covered in sweat and immediately bowed his head and folded his fists. Wei Liang dare not. I beg Qin Shanju to calm down. You Wei Liang, don't participate in this Demoguen discussion, and immediately return to your Nanyuan Imperial Mausoleum dojo. Qin Pingon put the fishing rod at his feet, stood up and disappeared without a trace. Dressed in a long gown, covered with a blue gauze robe and carrying a sword in the night. Wei Liang didn't dare to look up and said in a trembling voice, follow the decree of the Mountain Lord. Zhou Xian's expression was the same as usual. I had seen the world in our Luopa Mountain. Wu Jiang nodded secretly. It was indeed Qin Zhenxian, it was a fake. Yuan Huang had a headache and felt that the talisman in the picture box seemed a little hot. The goddess of Qiucheng Mountain stares round her eyes. Is it true that the real person does not show his appearance? As for the previous group chatting around Zhou Xian, they are all looking at each other at this moment at a loss as to what to do. Is there still time? The earthquake trembled like thunder on the ground, the wind was strong and everyone on the shore kept retreating. From the shore of the Autumn Chi Lake to the Demoguen in the center of the lake, the sword light swept away like a blue rainbow. Fox Country. In a secret room, a red candle as thick as an arm burned like tears. The woman's heart-rending wailing, weeping and cursing came one after another, and eventually the movement became smaller and smaller. The main members of the cultivators of the Palm discipline of the Fox Kingdom gathered here. Early this morning they began to torture a traitor who colluded with outsiders. It's a big deal and they can't help it. The poor woman, who was bruised and dying, had her hands and feet nailed to the wall. The pair of crescent-white embroidered shoes on his feet were already soaked with blood. She is a fox in the cave dwelling. She was able to leave the Fox Country as usual a few years ago and go to the outside world to experience Taoism, but it was during this period that she dared to carry the Taoist guardian's elders and secretly hooked up with her. A Qi trainer from the Hushan faction passed on the information of the Hu Kingdom several times. Except for the prisoner who was being executed by hanging on the wall, a young man with a soldering iron inserted into the brazier, 2 tables were placed in the spacious secret room, and the rest of the cultivators were sitting. Hu Guozanglu, an old woman with a straight waist, held an iron whisk and habitually grasped the silk thread of the whisk, making a slight rustling sound. The old woman must be personally responsible for this interrogation. At this moment her face is ashen and she is extremely ugly. The lord of the country just left and this scandal happened. What a shame. The old woman was staring at the woman who deserved to be stabbed with thousands of knives. She was so daring, she even dared to pass on such secrets as, a blue-shirt guest visited the state owner's business last night. Did you write it? If Luo Peixian finds out about this, let alone her Jindan realm who is the master of law, I am afraid that the country's Lord Peixiang will not be able to get rid of the relationship, and the entire Fox Country will suffer. On the table of the old woman, there is a female cultivator of the Fox Country who is responsible for writing and recording. In fact, there are not a few words written on the paper. Sitting next to her is an old man who specializes in punishment. He is an elderly male fox with a low level. Neither is in the middle 5 realms, but he can't stand this guy with a lot of tricks. He is highly valued by the old lady in charge of the Fox Country. He never goes out. It is really a Fox Country. Of course he always acted impartially, but if the problem is that he died at his hands or even shed a layer of skin if he didn't die, they wouldn't feel that way. In his entire life he has dealt with breaking the boundary of cultivation, and his aptitude is not good and he has nothing to do with it. The old man is like a fish in water here. What to do when he goes out? All kinds of faces, figures, styles, no matter how good-looking women, he has seen them here too. Patriarch Zhang Lv agreed. After his young life has expired, he has become a ghost. He will help him gather his soul and change into a fox skin, so he can continue to stay here. On the other table, there were two beautiful women who were incompatible with this secret room. In the fox country where there is no shortage of beauties, they are both outstanding and beautiful. It was the two proud disciples of the Lord Peixiang, Luo Fumei and his junior sister Qiu Qing. Qiu Qing from the state of Dongfu has no Taoist name yet. She is nicknamed Xiaoxuan by Master Peixiang. Senior sister Luo Fumei nicknamed Yu Tiao, nicknamed Ugly Newer. Luo Fumei is not yet 30 and she is already in the Dragon Gate realm, and she has a place in the Fox Kingdom Patriarch Hall. At first there were very few Earth Immortals and Luo Fumei also had a hidden identity. She was the deputy of the ancestor of Hu Guozhang who was in charge of espionage. Occasionally he will practice his hands and personally interrogate the forbidden monks. At that time the fox skin talisman beauty that Zhou's family in Qingfeng City sold to one continent, as the fox skin of the talisman. The origin of this thing is not just the molding of the fox monks, many of which are brand new fox skins peeled off with blood dripping. In the early years there was a fox country with many hilltops. There were many different Dao lineages and the relationship between them was discordant. What was the death and injury of fighting in private? There were even wars involving hundreds of Fox Clan Qi practitioners at every turn. Peixiang, the son of the country's lord, can't control all the forces. She only needs to guard her own 1/3 of an acre of land, not to mention the rest of the mountains. It's that vicious-hearted housewife of Qingfeng City. Therefore the Su clan in Qingfeng City never cared about the fighting within the fox country, killing them. Isn't it all about adding a piece of fox skin and it's just piles of fairy money? Anyway, as long as the door to the gentle township of the hero tomb is always open, the members of the fox clan can keep spreading their branches. Greed does not go. There are young fox charms every year, one after another, and the lives of adult male foxes are especially worthless. Whenever there is a dispute they always die first. There have even been 2 cases of overcrowding in the fox country in history, but it's not troublesome. Qingfeng City caused 2 wars within the fox country, killing each other into a river of blood. The young girl Qiu Qing was also a monk in the line of palm discipline. At this moment she was sitting upright, not looking sideways, staring at the tortured woman. She recognized that when they met, the girls would call the other party Sister Song and chat a few words. In Qiu Qing's opinion, Sister Song is a cheerful, gentle-looking woman. She shouldn't be hung on the wall and cut off her tendons. Her body was branded in many places by the hot iron, which was terrible and shocking. The whole secret room exudes a smell of burnt flesh. She is different from senior sister Luo Fumei. She is here today because of her duty and she has to come. As for the punishments used on Sister Song, she could not speak of fear. The girl just watched the whole process quietly and never felt creepy, but she was just unhappy in her heart. Seeing these pictures for the first time, the girl would not feel nauseated or the like, which surprised the senior sister who had been waiting for a good show, saying that she was a hot-faced and cold-hearted talent. Luo Fumei rested her cheeks with one hand, looking very absent-minded. She lowered her head and gently rubbed the fingernails of her remaining fingers with her thumb. It was coded that she had just died before she came to prison. It is a good thing made by the fox country's own secrets. It picks hundreds of flowers and women apply nail polish to aphrodisiac. It works better than any aphrodisiac. A small box, the market price of Qingfeng City in the past, can sell more than a dozen snow money, and there is no market for it. On the bright side, the Songlai country Hushan faction together with Gaojun has a total of 16 Qi refiners, and they belong to the only one in the Blessed Land. In this first-class blessed land, other sects and forces such as mountain monarchs, gods, emperors and generals, may need to look up to the Hushan sect. Fox country doesn't need it. There is only one Hushan faction with Jin Dan sitting on the top of the mountain. What is it? In the Hugua Patriarchal Hall, half of the cultivators were sent there to be guests, without the need for the country's Lord Peixiang to follow. I am afraid that the Hushan faction could become the old Huangli. The old woman asked in a deep voice. Song Jiaxu, why don't you say it? Anyway, it's a dead end, isn't it better to die comfortably? The woman named Song on the wall, who Mei was speechless, but she still tried her best to raise her eyelids and spit out a mouthful of blood. As the host of this cage, the old man stood up, rubbed his hands and was eager to try. Hu Zhanglu, why don't you let me come? The apprentice's ability is not good, he is a master and he has a few unique skills and he has to earn face back. Especially today, Luo Fumius were also present, which made him even more excited. He always felt that it was more exciting than fighting on the bed. The fun here is not enough for outsiders. Of course, he didn't dare to let Luo Fume know about his hobby. Or does she actually know and like it? Hey, that plump fox knows it but doesn't say it's the best, it's just a flirtation of fellow people. The old woman turned to look at the table next door. Luo Fume, what do you say? It's your turn? Luo Fume was slightly surprised, raised her head and glanced at it. I thought it was over. In fact, apart from the first secret letter, the contents of which were unknown, the second secret letter sent by Song Jiaxu had already been intercepted by Hu Guo, and the next few letters she sent were all written by Luo Fume. The previous secret letter to Luo Fume was filled with words that could not be combined into a single sentence. Obviously, there was an ancestral book between her and the adulterer, which needed a third party to translate. Books can decipher the content. But Luo Fume, who likes to read miscellaneous books the most, cannot help. In the words of Master, my ugly slave was born to eat this bowl of rice. In Song Jiaxu's boudoir, there are not many books in the collection, just the 20 or so books, all of which were quietly entered by the monks of the Palm discipline when she was out, and recorded the titles of the books. It was copied in the book and all the copies were handed over to Luo Fume. In addition, Luo Fume did not have to work in vain for the Taoist secretaries of the Taoism where Song Jiaxu is located. For example, Luo Fume and the man were in charge of several esoteric techniques at the top of the mountain. Zhou Xian, the predecessor of the money bag of the Fox country, swore that he would not learn it. However, Luo Fume did not reveal the secret technique. Originally, she wanted to spend more effort and thought she had to go to the Hushan faction to find some clues, never thought that this guy Song Jiaxu is too stupid. Or is it infatuated or that the other party is too greedy? Not only do you want to sleep on her body, but also a secret magic technique from the Fox Kingdom? Buy one get one free, it's really a good way to get both people and money. But in this way it is really not difficult. Luo Fume was not happy at all but felt very lost. It was boring to solve the case so easily. Taking 10,000 steps back, he said, even if there is no clue, then peel the traitor's skin, let her Luo Fume put on the new clothes, go out again and go to Songlai country for a walk. He doesn't believe it. I can't catch that big fish from Hushan Pai. Although Song Jiaxu and that man belong to the love of men and women and you love me, but this kind of behavior of trying to steal the secret insiders of other dojos, the secrets of spiritual books, etc. has always been a taboo on the mountain in Howren world. As long as the evidence is conclusive, it is anyone who can raise a teacher to ask for guilt, torn his face and fight, is a teacher who is famous and has reason. When Luo Fume stood up, the old man immediately sat down. The old woman in charge of the law was obviously relieved, and the male fox who executed the execution also put the soldering iron back into the brazier. Luo Fume walked to the brazier and squatted as if she stretched out her hands to keep warm. She looked up at the woman nailed to the wall, rubbed her hands lightly and said softly, "My good sister, Qing Ben beautiful, how can you be a thief and not love you? I don't know how much I cherish it, but I want to deceive my master and destroy my ancestors, and implicate a whole lot of children. Your master, several senior sisters and junior sisters, and those who protected the way for you last time, in short none of them want to run away. Especially your master who always likes to chew his tongue behind his back and scold me with a lot of ugly words. How come he doesn't know anything about the bed? I haven't eaten pork and haven't seen pig run. Listen carefully and study hard." The woman's voice was hoarse and muffled, but unfortunately it was vague and no one could hear what she was saying, but the content was easy to guess. It was nothing more than begging Luo Fume not to implicate others. Luo Fume stood up, walked to Song Jiaxu, raised one foot and gently kicked the red embroidered shoes soaked in blood on the latter's feet. Luo Fume raised one hand, raised her fingers, shook it, and then he stretched out another hand and twisted the poor woman's eyelids with his fingers. Luo Fume stood on tiptoe and smiled softly. "Open your eyes and see, the color of my nails is exactly the same color as your embroidered shoes. Wait. Come on, your lover will see it too. Then I will take your embroidered shoes with me." After he has seen it, I will peel off his skin bit by bit, tear it apart from the eyebrows." And he turned around, went all the way around his back and then forked the road to his snow-white belly, tugged with both hands, slammed, stopped and asked him if it hurt. "I'm just curious, the one who deceived you, whether it's with you or entangled in the bed, how did he make a promise to you?" "I guess it's that man," with affectionate eyes with a resolute tone. "You will definitely let you betray the Fox country alive, hide in the Zhou Xian faction, become a Daoist companion, white-headed concentric and practice hand in hand. By the way, you are the most proficient Humaizi in the Fulong lineage in our Hu kingdom. What you leaked out is the secret book. By the way, you should be born to go to the dragon bed to turn the clouds and rains. That is, he will help you change your face. How about you? I will send you to the Songlai Kingdom's palace to be a concubine, love day and night with the emperor who is still young, have a body like a dragon, pregnant with a dragon child, become a queen, just sleep with a man and the realm will be reduced. You can improve all the way. Sometimes when you are tired, let a man lie on top of you and move, but you can whip it hard and you will gasp for a while and you will stop talking. To ask for mercy?" Between the words, Luo Fumei was not idle at all. Only to see her movements are gentle, and she used her fingernails to open a few small holes on Song Jiash's body. The blood-stained woman moved her lips slightly, but Luo Fumei stretched out her hand to hold her mouth and smiled. "It's too late. Does it matter whether you say it or not? Anyway, that man has to die. Before he dies, I have to send a message from Zhou Xian. It's not a loss to ask for a secret technique over there. The woman with the Taoist name Yudiao has hot eyes at the moment. If you help the Fox country add 2 Taoist books, you will earn it." The old woman hesitated and said, "As long as Song Jiashu is willing to speak, maybe he can get more news." Luo Fumei turned her head, her face full of anger, and scolded, "You useless old thing, you dare to teach me to do things." In an instant, Luo Fumei stopped talking, her face was snow-white for an instant, and she began to tremble inexplicably. It turned out that outside the fence where the prison was furnished, there stood a man with his arms in his sleeves, looking at her with a smile on his face. Following Luo Fumei's line of sight, everyone saw the uninvited guest, and the girl Qiu Qing was exactly the same, turning pale and colorless. He was dressed in a snow-white robe with a gold hairpin on his head. The man smiled and pulled out his sleeves, handed his palm to Luo Fumei's side. His voice was gentle and he smiled. "I'm just watching the fun and see how the Hu kingdom enforces the family law. You continue." Luo Fumei didn't say a word, turned around stiffly and faced the man. She knelt on the ground on the spot, and at the same time reminded her junior sister, "Qiu Qing, if you don't want to die, get down on your knees." Qiu Qing quickly knelt down with her senior sister. This, Qin Pingon, who changed from a green shirt to a white robe, ignored Luo Fumei and Qiu Qing, just looked at the woman on the wall and asked, "Do you want to live?" The woman shook her head slightly. Qin Pingon asked, "Want to die? In exchange for others not to be implicated?" The woman nodded slightly. Qin Pingon said, "Then let me help you?" The woman nodded again, unable to speak, but her eyes with blood and tears were just looking at that strange man who didn't even know who it was. In this Qin Pingan's eyes, the dying woman was not very angry, her spiritual energy was dissipated and she was gloomy, but at this moment, only he could see it, brilliance and brilliance, like a god. Qin Pingon nodded and smiled. "It turned out to be you. I thought it was Qiu Qing, Qiu Qing, Qiu Qing, Qing Qiu Qing Qiu. Forget it, even if it's not you, it's still you. From now on you change your name, it's called Tsuebai. Because of this, the real Tsuebai would not appear in the Fox country, then she wouldn't be able to be this Dao." Reaching out his hand, Qin Pingon twisted a golden silk thread with his fingers and pulled it gently. Sure enough, on the other end of the long thread, the word "falling" Gao Jun appeared. Song Jiashu actually didn't have a lover. She was only on the way to practice and she met Gao Jun, maybe chatting some gossip. Gao Jun gave her some pointers and she was fascinated by the head of the Zhou Xian faction, willing to take the initiative to reveal the fox inside the backstory to the Zhou Xian faction. But it is also considered a lover? Qin Pingon walked to Luo Fumei's side. "Get up and Qiu Qing, don't stand still." Luo Fumei just knelt on the ground, kowtowed heavily and said solemnly, "This servant does not dare to get up." Qin Pingon said, "It's nothing more than performing their duties, please rest assured." Luo Fumei, don't be nervous. In the future most of the patriarchs of the Hu kingdom will be you. Pikexiang's side, I will help you say hello. So you have to get into the golden core earlier. Luo Fume then stood up tremblingly, her body was tense, her movements were stiff, and she gave 1,000 blessings. According to the gourd and the scoop, Qiuqing followed the senior sister to do the same. Qin Pingon said, "Ask, who did you learn from?" Luo Fume said in a trembling voice, "No one teaches these crooked ways, it's the slaves who taught themselves." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Aren't you talented?" Luo Fume didn't know how to answer for a while. Qin Pingon asked, "Just now I only saved junior sister but not the rest of the members of the Palm Law lineage. A dead Daoist friend is not a poor Daoist, so who did you learn from?" Luo Fume said cautiously, "In the past the Fox country had such a rotten ethos, not to mention slaves, who also want to seek wealth and risk and become the law of the palm sooner rather than later." Qin Pingon smiled and said, "Wealth and honor are sought in danger, but they are all lost in danger. The most troublesome part of these old sayings is that they are only passed on half word of mouth and misleading children." Luo Fume nodded and said, "The mountain master's teaching, the slaves remember it, and it will definitely be remembered in my heart. Learn quite fast." As soon as Luo Fume uttered the word mountain master, all the monks from the Fox country and the old lady in the secret affair all knelt down and made up the ceremony. All of them didn't dare to breathe. I just said that in the Peixiongbai courtyard last night, Luo Fume was not so timid. She thought that if she didn't see the mountain master she would never see her again. She was still the direct disciple of the country's master, Peixiong, one of the members of the Patriarch Hall of Luopa Mountain. Then in the secret affairs, these Fox clan Qi trainers who were used to hearing about Qin Yingwen's deeds, finally saw the last hidden officer of the Great Wall of Sword Qi, and how courageous can they be? The female cultivator of the Fox tribe who was in charge of taking the pen and recording was already so frightened that her face was full of tears, but she didn't dare to cry. It's a pity that the Lord Qinshan has disappeared. As a result, Luo Fume deliberately stood there and continued chatting with Qin Shanzhu. She didn't forget her business and turned around and put the traitor from the Fox Kingdom down from the wall. When the junior sister Qiuqing winked at her, Luo Fu gave her a white look, stretched out his hand to support Cui Bai. She chatted a few more words and then coughed. "Get up, the mountain master is gone." A false alarm, there is no danger. For some people it can even be said to be a lot of wealth. As for today's work and lack of effort, don't they have a talk that can make the speaker envy and the listener envy? Luo Fume helped Song Jiashu to sit down at the table. The woman whose hands and feet were covered with nails and had not been pulled out could only lean against the wall. "Song Jiashu, I should call you Zuibai Daoist friend from now on. You are the lucky one. To be honest, I envy you so much that I want to peel your skin right now. Wear it on yourself. I put the ugly words in front of you. If you dare to live up to the high expectations of the Lord Qinshanzhu in the future, I will definitely do everything possible to kill you regardless of the cost. Don't be a mute, just squeak and nod." Song Jiashu just stared at this ruthless Luo Fume. Luo Fume pinched her chin and tugged. "Very good, just assume you agree." Song Jiashu could only move his fingers slightly, but he still couldn't raise his hand. Luo Fume twitched the corners of her mouth, her face full of sarcasm. She leaned forward and whispered a few words in her ear. Anyway, she had something to do with Song Jiashu's preacher and Gao Jun. Song Jiashu was silent. Luo Fume leaned back, stretched out her fingers with a smile and tapped lightly on an iron nail on her arm. Song Jiashu was suddenly in pain. Luo Fume smiled and said, "Ding. First, take Song Jiashu out of the prison and send it back to her own residence to recuperate." After her junior sister Qiuqing was busy, she fed Song Jiashu a few pills, first carefully removed those nails, and then prepared a bucket of potion and a few bottles of the precious Fox Country secret. Making plaster, Luo Fume knelt down on the embroidered stool, opened a booklet, hummed a tune, and began to write down today's experiences with a pen, recording every word and detail of the young hidden officer after he appeared. Empty Peixiongbai. Qin Pingon walked slowly among them. In fact, this lotus root-blessed land has hidden secrets and can be regarded as two worlds. But even Peixiong was not aware of this matter for the time being. Even though Gao Jun was among the golden elixir back then and once traveled the world in the wind, he still failed to detect the truth. It was only because Cui Dongshan asked the right side of Sui to hand over a phoenix tree to Jiang Shangzhen. The latter in Tongyi's Hao accommodated more than 1 million refugees, while the Earth Immortals and their families, French, disciples and grandchildren. Together there are as many as 6,000 people. At that time, Jiang Shangzhen was in 2 secluded areas in the Blessed Land, and asked Yu Guizhong and Yanggu Jiang to enshrine 2 proficient arrays. They circled 2 distant sites, set up landscape restrictions and resettled so many refugees. Let them they live and thrive in 1,000 miles away, but they are isolated from the world. Inside the Blessed Land, only Wei Liang, the supreme emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, knew about this. Because when they escorted these Tonggis Hao people into the Blessed Land for refuge, in addition to a large number of Yunlin Jiang's children, the right side of Sui Yair and Jianxiu Chaojun, and Wei Xian, the founding emperor of Nanyuan Kingdom, led by himself. 10,000 fine riders are responsible for clearing the way. Although the Lotus Root Blessed Land has been closely linked with Luopao Mountain, if you take away the Tong Leaf umbrella, it will hurt your muscles and bones and lose a lot of money, but Qin Pingan still intends to let him in the next meeting of the Patriarch Hall. Cui Dongshan and Xiao Mo took the Tongye umbrella to Tonggis Hao. As long as they are willing to go back to their hometown, they can leave the Blessed Land and return to the mountains and rivers of Tonggis, his homeland. Of course, those who are willing to stay are better Luopao Mountain. Soon the ban on landscapes will be lifted, the door will be opened, and the people who choose to stay will be integrated into the 4 kingdoms of Blessed Land. However, if one of the Tong Yezhouqi trainers counts as one, they will have to owe a debt to Qingping Sword Sect, so it can be roughly closed. A fox country must need a monk like Luo Fume. What about the future Luopa Mountain? What about Qingping Sword Sect, who has already set up the sect framework? Qin Pingan smiled, his figure disappeared in a flash, and after a distraction he returned to the cage. Xietao who recognized Julian, Julian who recognized Xietao. One person and one ghost, in the dilapidated old site of By Under the Clouds, from the dark night to the sky, the white of the fish's belly appeared. The rickety old man in cloth shoes added deadwood several times, and the mountain goddess who guarded this family business chatted. Her brows were soaring and she was not tired. At most she glanced at Julian from time to time, feeling weird. The majestic mountain goddess, like a lively girl, completely opened up the conversation box, and talked about the last 100 years of rivers and lakes with this heartbreaker who would definitely kill the killer when she met her heart again. Even if the other party made it clear that he came here first, it had nothing to do with her. Xietao still didn't mind at all, the word first was enough. Xietao said that his family's library that was 100 buildings had been destroyed in the military disaster, and the study called Autumn Eyes no longer existed. Hearing this, Julien was indifferent, as if he was listening to a story from another family. But in Yuyu Garden, although the famous flowers were burnt clean by a fire, the rockery made of countless famous stones and ancient inkstones has been scattered everywhere. But in recent years, it seems that there are several identities unknown and generous behind-the-scenes collectors are buying and collecting these stones and inkstones with huge sums of money. Hearing this, Julien finally opened his mouth and said a few words with a smile. What to do with this thing is to waste manpower and money, even if someone pieced together a rockery in its original shape. What do you want to do, pick up some women's embroidered shoes? Do you really think that stuff smells so good? There are baskets and baskets and the smell is really not very good. In the past, flower farmers had to hold their noses and carry the burden. If they could not sell some money, they would all be regarded as a chore. Anyway, I always stay far away. There is also the Coral Palace on land where Julien used to store the famous swords in the world. Because the address is hidden like Yunxiabai, he was lucky to escape, but when Xietao hurried there he found that he had already been boarded first. And Xietao, who is proficient in building a piece, can see that it was evacuated, which is the same as her idea. It is not the kind of random smashing, but it is torn down bit by bit, marked and then tried to keep it intact. Do not put it back together. Julien just smiled and commented on this, never thinking that he was still an elegant thief. Xietao asked curiously, "Where have you been all these years?" Julien said slowly, "Inexplicably, a life and death battle is coming. It's like..." Xietao waits for the next paragraph. Julien smiled and said, "It's like waking up early in the morning and having a good dream." Xietao had a sad face, bit his lip and asked, "Next, where are you going and what are you doing?" In fact, what she really wants to ask is who you will meet again and will you come back here? Some dead branches occasionally made some movement in the fire. Julien thought for a while, looked up at the sky and said, Go to the kitchen over there in the temple, make you breakfast and see if my craft has improved." Xietao was both happy and angry, bit his lip and muttered, "You have done other jobs under this cloud before, you just compiled a recipe and you have never cooked." Thinking back to that time, the old noble's son, holding his cheek with one hand, sat lazily at the desk. While writing the preface of the recipe, the tip of the pen rustled on the peach blossom paper he made by himself, while turning his head and scrolling over the door. The woman behind the bamboo curtain smiled and said that governing a big country is like cooking a small fish. The golden sun shines through the window, dashing on the man's face. Zhou Xian smiled and said, "That's what I remembered wrong." Xiatao turned his head away from him. Zhou Xian asked with a smile for no reason, like a riddle, "Guest officer, I've been on the tip for a long time. When will I leave the store and settle the bill?" Xiatao was puzzled, turned his head and stared at Zhou Xian blankly. "Stupid girl is stupid girl. Blame me for giving you the nickname Crybaby back then." Zhou Xian shook his head with a smile, with his hands behind his back. His body was hunched, and he took the lead to move towards the mountain shrine. Xiatao followed silently, walking, her eyes lit up suddenly. She stopped, staring at the back. She quickened her pace, followed the old man and reached out to take his arm. Zhou Xian gently pulled his arm, complaining that a man and a woman are not kissing each other. Xiatao snorted and refused to